Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is part 2 of What If Naruto Was in Sailor Moon and Got a Harem. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and also go and support the author, link in description. Jadeite, present yourself and report. Queen Beryl sat upon her throne as she once more addressed the gathering of minions in the large throne room. When she had learned that the first attempt to gather the energy of the humans had been met with failure, the queen was very displeased, even more so when she had heard that a couple of young teens were responsible for the destruction of one of her prized Yoma. Beryl voiced her displeasure quite well to her first general and informed him that she expected much more favorable results in his next attempt to harvest energy. Now she sat and waited for said general to outline his latest plan. My queen, I report that I have found a new source of energy in the humans. Apparently they expel a large amount of energy on an emotion called love. Yes, I have heard of it. And you have a plan to gather this energy. Yes, my queen. I have already dispatched my servant Flow to take full advantage of the humans' weakness and harvest their energy for the Dark Kingdom. She awaits my command. Queen Beryl nodded as she gazed into her crystal ball, once more looking upon Tokyo's skyline. Very well then. You have my permission to move forward with your plans. The queen's eyes narrowed as she looked back to Jadeite. Just try not to disappoint me as you did with your last attempt. I expect much better results this time. That is all. By your command, my queen. Night time. Juban, Sakino residence. We now find our two favorite blonde teens turned senshi enjoying a little quality time inside Usagi's room. After the battle with Morga, both Naruto and Usagi were able to talk with their new guardian Luna about their jobs as senshi more thoroughly. From what the two learned, there were at least 9 sailor senshi in existence, one for each planet, that protected the solar system from evil, and that at least 5 of the 9 had been reincarnated on Earth. Luna informed them that they needed to find these 4 other senshi so that they could awaken their powers and help fight the Dark Kingdom. However, Luna could not tell who these individuals were until she got close enough to them to sense their powers. Until then, Naruto and Usagi were on their own. While Luna was able to tell Usagi about her abilities as Sailor Moon and the Sailor Senshi in general, she was not able to help Naruto with his powers since the Shadow Senshi acted as more of a covert force that answered only to the Queen of the Silver Millennium and the respected rulers of the planets, meaning Naruto had to learn these things on his own. Usagi was currently sitting on her bed in her pink pajamas clutching a pillow as she listened to the radio waiting for a new program to begin its broadcast. Naruto was in a pair of orange sweatshirt and pants sitting cross-legged on the floor as he tinkered with a certain belt. It was at exactly 10 o'clock when the program that Usagi was waiting for started. Good evening all you night owls. It's the late night hour, and you know what that means. Time for the love line. Tonight we have a very special love letter from a very special lady, reaching out to a long-lost friend, whom she would like to get in touch with again. It's signed, Hopeful Haruna. Inside her apartment, Sakurata Haruna began jumping around as she cheered excitedly, hearing that her letter was going to be read on air. Haruna. Usagi spoke out in shock to hear the name of the writer. There was only one person whom she knew was named Haruna. Naruto also perked up when he heard the name of his teacher. Don't tell me Miss Haruna sent the love line a letter. It can't be her, teachers never have boyfriends. Naruto turned to Usagi with an amused expression on his face. And just how would you know that, Ni-chan? Miss Haruna is just as much of a girl as you are. In fact, she probably knows more about love than you do. Usagi responded by turning to her brother and sticking her tongue out at him. Ni. Before we read the letter, I just want to tell all our listeners that the love line always wants to help the lovelorn. Write us. If we read your letter on the air, we will reward you with a romantic prize. Naruto chuckled as he listened to his sister sigh at the radio. Truthfully, he would much rather be listening to Linkin Park, but since it was his sister's radio he would just have to make do with it. It was around this time that Luna decided to pay the two a visit as she walked in through the door. Ah, evening Luna. Naruto smiled and greeted his new guardian as she walked over towards the two blondes. Good evening to you too, Naruto. Are you doing well? Luna greeted in return. I'm good. Just hanging out with Usagi Ni-chan for a bit while she listens to the radio. Luna turned to Usagi as the radio DJ begins reading Haruna's letter. Dear lost love, it's been several years since we saw each other, but you're never far from my heart. Usagi sighed out once more as she began to imagine herself as a radio host who helped girls find true love. I wish I was a love radio DJ, or maybe even a TV host. Naruto turned back to his sister with a smile on his face. Well, no one said you couldn't. I think it'd be pretty cool if you had your own radio or TV show, maybe you could get me on it from time to time. Usagi smiled happily, as she continued deeper into the world of her imagination while Luna decided she needed to put her 2 cents in on the subject. Usagi, you're too young to be thinking things like that. You still need to get through school, and with your grades that is where you need to be focused right now. And besides, you still have the Dark Kingdom to worry about, and the two of you are destined to fight them. Naruto thought about it for a moment before replying to the guardian feline. Luna, as true as that might be, I doubt we will be fighting the Dark Kingdom forever. One day we'll beat those sorry monsters back to where they came from, and then we'll have our whole lives ahead of us. Naruto reached over and began to scratch Luna's head. His gentle ministrations had the instant effect of making the cat purr. Besides, it's like you said before, we're still young. So let us have our dreams, okay? Hee hee. She may be a talking cat, but she's still a cat. Luna continued to purr in bliss as she began to lean into Naruto's hand. I suppose you're right, Naruto. Purr. Oh, his fingers feel so good. Luna had taken an instant liking to the whiskered blonde. He showed that he could be brave and dependable and could take control of things when he needed to, not to mention he seemed to know exactly where the right spot behind her ear is to scratch. Usagi giggled as she watched the two interact with one another when she suddenly took notice of what Naruto had in front of him. Hey, what is all that, Naruto ni? Huh. Naruto looked back, causing him to stop scratching Luna. Said cat pouted a bit from her loss of attention until she too noticed what the boy was tinkering with. Displayed in front of Naruto was an ornate leather belt with several pouches attached along the length, all opened with their contents removed. Though both Usagi and Luna didn't recognize the belt immediately, had they had both thought hard enough they would have realized that they had seen it once before. Laying neatly above the belt were several sets of white-colored kunais, shurikens, senbon needles, paper tags, scrolls, bottles, small pellets, and a blade-tipped chain that had been organized into their respective groups. Oh, you mean this? Naruto said as he picked up the belt to let the two examine it closer. I thought that I could look at all the things the belt had while you were listening to the radio. Where exactly did you get that belt, Naruto? Luna asked as she inspected the article. Naruto blinked in confusion before smiling. Don't tell me you don't remember this. It's a part of my Shadow Senshi clothes when I transform into the Lunar Knight. I was wearing it when we fought that Yoma, Morga. Usagi and Luna blinked a couple of times before their faces lit up in recognition. Wow, so that's like some kind of Shadow Senshi utility belt or something? Usagi asked as she gave the belt another analyzing look. I guess you could call it that. Naruto replied as he laid the belt back on the floor. Luna walked over and began to examine the numerous items present. So you were able to bring out items from the lunar necklace itself. Where in the world did you find a way to do that? Luna knew about how the Senshi items physically stored the garments they wore when the Senshi transformed, however she never knew that someone could actually bring them out without using the transformation. Naruto scratched the back of his neck as he began to answer the cat's question. Well, you see, it was the weirdest thing. Flashback. One night before. Naruto lay in his bed as he soundly slept through the night, his face showing a calm expression while his mind rested through a dreamless slumber. Suddenly his head began to toss about as his mind was suddenly ablaze with activity. Inside of his mind, Naruto finds himself assaulted with a barrage of knowledge. Knowledge pertaining to his Shadow Senshi abilities. Powers, skills and techniques were flooding his mind as he continued to thrash about on his bed until at last the wave of information ceased its invasion and Naruto bolted up, his breathing slightly labored as he rubbed his forehead, trying to figure out where the foreign knowledge came from. As he started to sort through the new information he now possessed, he failed to notice the moon emblem in his lunar necklace glowing a pale white before the light quickly faded away. End flashback. And once I was able to sort through all that new knowledge I got, I found that I was able to pull out the belt when I concentrated some of my energy into the necklace and focused on the item I wanted to withdraw. Usagi and Luna stared at him for a moment before Luna broke the tension as she spoke. Well, that was quite unexpected. Usagi nodded and glanced at the small arsenal her brother had displayed in front of him. So, those are all the things that were inside the belt. Naruto nodded as he picked up one of the kunais and inspected it. Yep, standard issue Shadow Senshi weapons and gear. And you had them with you the whole time. That's right. So, why didn't you use them in the Yoma fight? Quote. Naruto slowly turned with a sheepish grin on his face as he scratched the back of his head. Because I didn't know about them beforehand. Thinking back now, the fight would have gone a lot easier if he had just checked his belt when he first transformed. Luna sighed before turning her attention to the clock on the wall. It's getting late, you two. You need to get to bed since you both have school in the morning. Usagi grumbled under her breath, muttering something about hating school and starts too early, as she settled into her bed while Naruto collected his gear and placed them back into the pouches on his belt. When he finished and made sure that the pouches were secure, the boy placed his palm on the center of the belt with one hand and brought his necklace close to it with the other. Applying a little energy to the belt and willing the item to return to the necklace, the belt suddenly exploded with a poof into a cloud of smoke before it was drawn back into the emblem. With that accomplished, Naruto put the necklace back on before getting to his feet and heading for the door. As he exited the room, he turned to the two occupants and wished them both a good night, closed the door and headed for his own room to get some much-needed sleep. Next morning, Naruto sat at the breakfast table with his father, Kenji, who was reading the morning paper as the two ate their meals while Akuko continued to make portions for them in the kitchen. Shingo had already left for school after he quickly downed his food and bolted out the door. As Kenji looked over the paper, he noticed that there was a big red circle around the day's date on the paper's header. Curiosity getting the better of him, he asked his wife. Honey, why did you circle the date in red magic marker? Akuko looked sternly at her husband as she brought in some more food to the table. She put the plate down and crossed her arms, bringing her eyes level to his. Oh, did I? Maybe because there is something special about today. Kenji did some really fast thinking as he folded up the paper. By the time he put it down on the table, he remembered what was so special about the day. It was their wedding anniversary. Oh, you mean besides it being our anniversary and me taking you out to dinner and dance tonight? Thank God I just remembered. Akuko instantly perked up as she smiled at her husband lovingly. Oh ho ho ho. Oh, you did remember. The housewife picked up a piece of toast and offered it to the man. Say, ah. Akuko happily complied, taking a bite out of the bread. Akuko was a happy and loving woman most of the time, but when something riled her up she could easily strike fear in even the bravest of men. And nothing seemed to make her angrier than when her husband forgets their anniversary, something he had learned the hard way earlier in their marriage. Naruto looked up as he finished his meal and couldn't help but chuckle a bit as he watched the two interact. Dodged that bullet, didn't you, Dad? Suddenly the sound of screaming alerted all present that the daughter of the house had awoken. Ni-chan's up. Naruto thought as he rose from his seat and headed for the door. Bye Mom, bye Dad. Bye, sweetie. Akuko responded as she watched her eldest son leave. Not a moment later Usagi came running into the room, grabbed some toast, and bolted out the door with only a few parting words. Hello. Goodbye. Juban Junior High School. Naruto and Usagi had managed to make it right on time thanks again to the blonde boy's knowledge of shortcuts. Now on a usual day, the moment the bell rings, Miss Haruna immediately gets cracking with the lectures and studies. However, today was rather unusual in the fact that it had been 15 minutes since the tardy bell rang and there was absolutely no sign of Miss Haruna anywhere. As the class waited, questions and theories were being thrown back and forth between students. Where is she? Miss Haruna never misses class. Usagi asked as she sat in her seat beside Naru, both girls wondering what happened to their tardy teacher, which to students seemed like a complete contradiction. Naru thought for a moment before speaking. I guess we'll end up with a substitute today. Hey, it'll be a free day then. Usagi chirped about the possibility of taking it easy in class for once. Sitting behind the two girls, Naruto had his head resting on his hands as he was deep in thought. Something doesn't feel right here. I've never seen Miss Haruna miss a class since I entered junior high. Before Naruto could ponder the situation further, the door to the classroom opened to reveal Miss Haruna finally arriving. The entire class gasped out when they saw the state of their teacher. The woman looked absolutely exhausted as she staggered over to her desk. The other thing that different about the usually energetic instructor was the presence of a flower brooch pinned to the left side of her coat. As Haruna literally dragged herself into her seat, she tiredly started her lesson, or tried to. Okay, class, today I want you to read chapters 19 through 6 and get ready to take a pop midterm. The class sweat dropped as they listened to their teacher give mixed instructions and gibberish lectures. Unseen to all, the flower brooch pinned on Haruna's jacket began to glow faintly as energy from the red-headed teacher got siphoned inside. As more of her energy left her, Haruna became weaker and sleepier. Now I want you to keep reading your books, and wake me up when the last bell rings. With that, the woman let out a big yawn before closing her eyes and falling asleep, as well as falling face first onto her desk with a loud thud. Ouch. The whole class stared in a mixture of shock, confusion, and amazement as the teacher, whom after hitting her head on the desk hard enough to give anyone a concussion, simply snored away as she drifted off to dreamland. Naruto finally shook himself out of his shock and got up to check on his sudden narcoleptic instructor. The boy had known his teacher for a long time, and while he had seen her come in tired before, probably from staying out late prowling for potential boyfriends, he had never seen her just fall asleep in mid-lecture before. So with some concern he made his way up to the slumbering woman. As he placed a hand on her shoulder, his senses kicked in as his abilities allowed him to feel a person's energy within close proximity while he was not in senshi form. Whoa! Miss Haruna's completely drained, Naruto thought as he started to shake the woman in an attempt to awaken her. Miss Haruna. Wake up. Miss H. Usagi watched her brother attempt to rouse Miss Haruna awake and spoke out in a cheery tone. Come on Naruto let her sleep. We can just relax the day away until school lets out if she's not making us study. Naruto turned and fixed a mild glare into his sister to let her know how serious the situation was before returning to his attempts to wake the sleeping teacher. Streets of Juban. Luna moved about the busy streets in search of a place to set up communications with Central Control, the organization that was aiding her in her quest to find the Sailor Senshi. As she looked about, she reflected on her mission and achievements so far. In the last week she had not only found and awakened the Senshi of the moon but also had discovered a Shadow Senshi as well and aided them in eliminating a Yoma, thereby throwing a monkey wrench into the Dark Kingdom's plans. Although it was a major victory towards the Senshi, Luna knew that they would be on the move again very soon. Luna started to think about the two wards now under her watch. Usagi was a very cheerful girl, however she could be a bit selfish and a crybaby at times as well as being a bit lazy, clumsy, and was not so motivated when it came to her studies. Despite the girl's shortcomings though, she was very kind and caring and always tried to see the better side of things. The cat had to admit that she was somewhat surprised at how well she kept herself cool under pressure during the Yoma fight and how she turned her opponent's attack into her own, no doubt something she picked up from her brother and his influence over her, which brought her to the second blonde of the picture. Naruto was a complete surprise to her. Not only was she not expecting to find a Shadow Senshi on Earth as she believed that they had all been wiped out, but he was Usagi's adopted brother and lived under the same roof. Now this was defiantly a blessing to her. Naruto showed a lot of the traits of a leader. He was kind, gentle and friendly, and at the same time he was cool, calm and focused when he needed to be. He had the ability to analyze a situation and come up with an immediate plan to resolve a crisis. He was strong and skilled, something that became quite apparent when he fought toe-to-toe with the Yoma in the jewelry store earlier. But what really got the Guardian Cat's attention was when he displayed an ability that she had never seen before. The blonde's ability to make solid copies of himself was something that left her dumbfounded. She had never heard of anyone who could outright make clones of oneself, though she had already admitted that she was never told about the abilities of the Shadow Senshi. However, seeing it in action, she was absolutely thrilled that they had such an amazing weapon at their disposal, as it meant that they could level the field in the event that the enemy calls for reinforcements. Yes, I think that Naruto will make an invaluable asset to the group, and an excellent leader for the team. Luna spoke out as she came to a stop in front of the doors to the Game Crown arcade, which just so happened to open up to reveal Furuhata Motoki getting ready for another day of work. Well, hello there. You must be Luna. Luna nearly freaked out at how close she came to blowing her cover, and it hadn't even been a month since she came to the city. She quickly regained her composure and fell into character of a typical domestic house cat, meowing and mewing in order to keep the man from getting suspicious of her. As she continued acting, Luna realized exactly whom she had run into. This must be one of Naruto's and Usagi's friends. The one that Usagi has a crush on. Motoki knelt down and began to rub Luna's head as he continued to speak. You know, Naruto and Usagi had told me about you the other day. Don't tell me that you're here to play video games too. As Luna began to think about the arcade, she realized that it was actually an ideal place to set up shop at. It was conveniently located between the Sakino house and the school, so it was ideal for when new information or trouble pops up. Well, as much as I'd like to stay and play with you, I gotta get ready for work. I'll see ya later, Luna. With that, the blonde arcade owner stood up and walked back inside, leaving Luna to her thoughts. Yes, this place will do nicely. I'll just have to sneak in later and tinker around with one of the machines and I'll have a working communication system in no time. It's perfect. Luna spoke out once more as she was sure that no one was around this time to hear her. She was gonna have to be very careful not to make the same mistake again. Just then the sound of a siren caught her attention as an ambulance rolled past her heading down the street. Luna followed it with her eyes and realized that it was heading for the school. Although she wanted to find out what had transpired, she couldn't afford to go and look for curiosity's sake. She had much planning to do. Juban Junior High School. A short time later. The ambulance arrived at the school and in a matter of minutes a still sleeping Haruna was loaded inside the vehicle which departed for the nearest hospital. Miss Haruna's class watched from their window on the second floor of the school, worrying about their teacher. No one should be able to stay asleep after a full hour of attempts to wake the woman, especially after the stunt pulled by Naruto. Flashback. Half an hour earlier. Naruto was continuing his attempts to awaken Miss Haruna from a sleep that even the dead could not achieve. The blonde boy had tried everything he could think of, pinching, poking, shaking, slapping lightly, slapping harder, slapping even harder, outright slapping, dousing her with a cup of water, dousing her with a bucket of water. No matter what he tried, the teacher continued to sleep. The whole class was both shocked and amused by the attempts the blonde made and were starting to get a little worried for the woman as Naruto was looking like he was getting desperate. Usagi decided to voice her concern in hopes that Naruto would not try something that might cause Miss Haruna harm. You know, Naruto ni, we might want to call the principal here. We might have better luck at waking her. Naruto, however, was not going to be deterred by his sister's advice. He still had one more idea to try. Walking over to the corner of the class, Naruto produced a pail of ice water from God knows where, placed it on the desk in front of the teacher, grabbed her by the shoulders and proceeded to dunk the woman's head face first into the pail. The class gasped out in shock and spoke out at the blonde's extreme measure. What are you doing? Are you crazy? Oh, she's gonna be pissed. Naruto ignored the class as he watched air bubbles rising up from the water around Haruna's submerged face before pulling her back out. Now he and the entire class was expecting to find a very awake and extremely irate teacher on their hands and was pretty sure that Naruto was gonna be getting a week's worth of detention and extra homework as punishment for his little stunt. However, the only response they got was a certain sound escaping the teacher's lips. Z. The jaws of every member of the classroom were now resting squarely on their desks as they stared at the teacher wide-eyed. Nobody was able to say a thing as Miss Haruna continued to imitate a sawing log. Naruto glared as his right eyebrow twitched uncontrollably as he summed up his failed attempts with a single internal thought. Okay. Seriously. What the hell? End flashback. It was after that when Naruto had relented and called for the principal to come and help out, although he had a hell of a time explaining why Miss Haruna was halfway drenched with water. When the faculty had no luck reviving the sleeping woman, they called for the paramedics. As the class continued to throw theories for their teacher's sudden sleep disorder, Naruto stayed silent as he thought about the situation. Something's not right here. Miss Haruna has never just upped and fell asleep in the middle of class before, and after everything I did to her she should have been screaming for my blood. Add to the fact that her energy was almost non-existent, it just doesn't make sense. Unless. Hey Naruto ni, what do you think happened to her? Naruto was brought out of his inner thoughts by his sister's question as he turned to her and shook his head. I don't know Ni-chan. I'm not sure why she would fall asleep like that. The blonde may have said that, but he had a good idea of why this happened. He just couldn't say it out loud in a room full of people. Maybe she has some kind of sleeping sickness. Yumino spoke up, deciding to add his say in the discussion. Usagi put her finger on her chin as she adopted a think pose. This is really weird. I mean, I've never heard of a teacher falling asleep at her desk before. Naru decided to join in as well. Maybe she stayed up late listening to that new show, The Love Line. I'm feeling kind of tired myself since I stayed up late listening to it past midnight. But that still doesn't explain how she stayed asleep during Naruto's torture session. Yumino stated as he readjusted his glasses. The group just shrugged as Usagi looked at the empty desk of their homeroom teacher. Well, since class is cancelled I guess it means we got up for nothing. The blonde turned back to her friend and brother. So, who's up for shopping? Usagi asked with a smile on her face. That girl was gonna milk the situation for all it was worth. Juban Business District, FM number 10 radio station. As the workers of the city's premier radio station continued about their daily duties, several personnel were finding themselves in a rather unique and perplexing situation. Many were currently standing before a large mound of letters addressed to the station. While it was not uncommon for letters to be received by the station, in fact it happened all the time, it was the fact that these letters were all addressed to the attention of a program called The Love Line, a program that to everyone's knowledge didn't exist. As the group sifted through the large amounts of fan mail the director in charge spoke up. Tell me something, why in the world are we receiving letters for a program that doesn't even exist? I don't know, sir. I've never even heard of this Love Line show, and nobody I've talked to seems to know either. One of the aides spoke up as he continued to sort through the pile. Well, someone needs to find out what's going on. In the meantime, we need to do something with all these letters. Just as the group finished sorting and binning the letters, a woman approached. She was an attractive lady with short red hair, pale skin, and an hourglass figure. Are those the letters for the new Love Line broadcast, sir? The woman spoke, gaining the attention of the group of workers. You know something about all this, ma'am? The director asked as he eyed the woman for a second. The smiled and replied, yes, I've been sent specially. Did headquarters send you? The man asked a bit more warily. It appeared that this woman wasn't going to be as easy as he thought. He wasn't in the mood to get into trouble for hitting on a lady who had ties with HQ. He never noticed the redhead's eyes flicker as she chuckled a bit before replying once more. You can say that. Streets of Juban. After leaving the school, the group of friends had split up for the day with Usagi and Naru heading for the shopping district while Naruto headed for the hospital having decided to check on Miss Haruna's condition. As they walked along the busy streets the two ladies conversed between one another about the usual girl stuff. During the conversation Naru decided to inform her best friend about the little project she was working on. I'm gonna write the perfect love letter so it will get read on the air by the Love Line DJ. But Naru, you don't even have a boyfriend. How are you gonna write a letter to someone who doesn't exist? Usagi asked as she tried to figure out her friend's reasoning. Naru turned her head and smiled. It's quite simple, Usagi. I'm gonna just invent one to write about. The redhead put a finger to her chin as she thought. Maybe I can use Naruto-kun. It would come as no big surprise for anyone to know that the girl had a slight crush on the whiskered blonde. Then again, so did the rest of the school's female population. Usagi smiled as she thought the idea over in her head. Hey, yeah, that's a great idea. You could make the ideal guy. The blonde girl blushed a bit as she started thinking of what would go in a perfect boyfriend. He'd be smart, funny, considerate, nice, a real gentleman, and totally cool. Kind of like Naruto ni. Chu. Inside Juban Secondary General Hospital a certain whiskered blonde boy rubbed his nose after a very big sneeze. Someone's thinking about me. Naruto thought as he continued to watch over his slumbering teacher in hopes that someone in the hospital could help wake her up. Meanwhile, Usagi had just finished her train of thought when she absent-mindedly bumped into someone, resulting in the girl falling backwards on her posterior. Realizing that she had just ran into a person because she wasn't paying attention, she was quick to get on her feet and apologize. "I'm so sorry, please forgive my rudeness," the girl said as she bowed her head to the person. However, instead of a proper reply, she got a barrage of laughter aimed at her. When she looked up, she saw the one person she really didn't want to see, the very same guy that had insulted her and Naruto outside of the Osa-P jewelry store. As the man finished his bout of laughter, he looked at the girl with a smug grin on his face. "What was that you just said about someone being cool, 'cause it certainly isn't you." Usagi glared at the guy as he continued his insults. "Shouldn't a girl like you be home studying right now? You certainly don't want to fail your next test like you did the last one. Well, I gotta run. See ya around, meatball head." And with that, the man pushed past with a final parting laugh. "Don't call me that, you jerk," Usagi growled out as she glared daggers into the back of the guy's head. Naru walked up to her now steaming best friend. "Wow, Usagi, you and Mamoru don't get along too well, huh?" "Yeah, well, that guy can go jump in the lake for all I care. Man, I wish Naruto-ni was here, he'd put that guy in his place." Usagi huffed as she turned and began to walk again. She also filed the man's name away for later and would also ask her friend how she knew his name in the first place. Sakino residence, nighttime. Usagi and Luna were waiting patiently in the blonde girl's room for the love line to air for the night. When Usagi got home earlier, she had decided to write her own love letter for the program and had sat about the task with Luna watching intently. However, it would seem that the girl's idea was doomed to fail before it even got started, as she found herself with a major case of writer's block, and as such not a single word was written down. When Luna commented on the girl's lack of progress, somehow it convinced Usagi to present herself to the station. Now how the blonde's thoughts went from writing a letter to self-auditioning at a radio station is beyond anyone's guess. So with that, Usagi, with Luna reluctantly in tow, made their way to the station. However, their progress was immediately impeded when the guardsman at the front gate denied them access to the station under the notion that the program the young girl had informed him of did not exist. After a short argument with the man, the two made their way back home. Knowing what they had heard on the radio last night, the two wanted to confirm their claim as they waited for the 10 o'clock hour to arrive. As they waited, there came a small knock on the door as Naruto made his way into the room. "Hey, guys." The boy greeted as he closed the door and joined his sister sitting on the bed. "Hey, Naruto-ni. Did Miss Haruna ever wake up?" Usagi asked as she readjusted herself so she was right beside her brother. Naruto looked over while shaking his head. "No, she's still out. She showed absolutely no signs of waking up. So, the hospital wasn't able to do anything for her. They said that it seemed like normal sleep, but they don't know why she won't wake up the normal stimulation, and until they can figure out what is causing this, they're afraid to try anything that might hurt her." Usagi rolled over to lie on her back as she pondered the situation. "Man, this is just so weird." "Is it, Ni-chan?" Naruto asked as he got up off the bed and moved to a wall to lean against while he addressed the two other members of the group. "Is it really so strange for this to happen?" "What do you mean, Naruto-ni?" Usagi asked. She sat up straight on the bed. Luna was also intrigued by Naruto's question. "What I mean is this situation is a lot similar to the one we found ourselves in when we fought that Yoma. I never said anything earlier back in class, but when I touched Miss Haruna after she fell asleep, I sensed that her energy had been drained from her. On top of that, I had overheard the hospital staff say that there were several cases of people falling asleep and remaining asleep in the Juban area over the past week." Luna's eyes widened as she listened to the blonde's statement. "Are you saying that the Dark Kingdom is behind this?" Naruto nodded. "Yep, it looks like they're back in business. So now the only question is where they have set up shop." It was then that Usagi's clock chimed, signaling the 10 o'clock hour as the radio cut on once again. It's the late night hour. Time, once again, for the love line. Usagi instantly perked up as she moved in front of the radio. I knew I had heard right. That guard didn't know what he was talking about. the blonde stated as she listened to the broadcast. Luna, meanwhile, had decided to look through the local paper for the radio schedule. When she found it, she was a bit surprised that the program was not listed anywhere in the lineup. This show started fairly recently, right? So why is it not listed in the paper? Naruto turned his attention to the cat and walked up to her. Let me see that. Luna allowed the boy to take the paper and examine it. Sure enough, the program known as Love Line was not listed in the lineup for the station. Hey, Nichan. Just how long has this program been running? About a week now. Why? Naruto didn't reply as he cupped his chin with his hand in thought. The same time as when the people started falling into dead sleeps. I wonder. While Naruto continued to ponder, Usagi turned her attention back to the radio. Our love letter for the night is addressed to a very lucky mystery man from a wonderful secret admirer named Naru. What? Naru got a letter read on the love line. Usagi spoke out in shock. FM number 10 radio station. Inside one of the broadcast rooms of the station, Flow, a Yoma disguised as the red-head woman from before, stood as she watched a certain blonde-haired man speak into the microphone of the radio with Naru's letter in hand. The Yoma chuckled a bit before thinking to herself. With all of the fan mail we have been receiving, this show is going to continue for a very long time. And that means plenty of energy for us to harvest for the Dark Kingdom. Queen Beryl will be most pleased. Inside of the recording booth, the man continued to talk into the microphone. Now remember, listeners. Every night we will read these letters, and for every letter we read we will send a very special prize to the sender the next morning. The man picked up an item off of the desk in front of him and examined it. The item was a flower brooch, the very same kind that Miss Haruna was wearing that morning. The man began to grin and chuckle as he eyed the brooch, pleased with himself at how well his plan was proceeding. Juban Junior High School, the next morning. Class was anything but normal the next day. Since Miss Haruna was still out, the class had been assigned a substitute and had been ordered to do independent study for the day. However, there was hardly any studying going on at the time since the class was abuzz about Naru's letter being read on the air the night before. As the DJ had promised, Naru had received a present from the station first thing in the morning and she was very excited to show off a little to her friends. She held the unopened package up to show the group that had gathered around her. Was that your letter on the radio, Naru? One of the friends asked as she watched her friend smile. Uh-huh. I couldn't believe it was read, I thought I was gonna faint back there. So, who is the lucky guy you wrote to? Naru blushed a bit as she replied. Oh, just some guy the first was thinking about. The redhead stole a quick glance over her shoulder to see Naruto enjoying some light reading. I wonder if he heard my letter. So, what are you waiting for, Naru? Open the gift already. Usagi said, eager to see what her best friend had received. Okay. Here goes. Naru opened the package and pulled out a familiar flower brooch. As the girls marveled over its beauty, Usagi quickly recognized the accessory. Hey, isn't that the same brooch Miss Haruna wore yesterday? The question brought Naruto out of his reading as he turned his attention to the group of young ladies. Wait, doesn't that mean that she was hopeful Haruna? One of the girls asked. Yeah, it has to be. Guess Naruto ni was right, earlier. Naru quickly affixed the brooch to her uniform. As soon as the flower was in place it began to glow faintly as the girl's energy began to be siphoned into the item, and with her energy leaving her, Naru began to feel very drowsy. What's going on? I feel so tired. The redhead let out a small yawn before her eyes closed and she fell asleep. Naru, are you okay? Wake up. Usagi spoke as she tried to awaken her friend. However, the brooch was still gathering energy and when Usagi leaned in close enough the brooch began to steal her energy as well. It only took a few seconds for Usagi to join Naru in sweet slumber as she fell to the floor with a thump. Naruto watched his sister suddenly collapse and was instantly by her side. Usagi Nichan. Wake up. Hey, Nichan. Come on. The boy shook his sister trying to wake her. When all he got was slight mumbling, he picked her up bridal style and looked to the group of girls. I'm taking her to the nurse's office. I'll be right back to get Naru as well. And with that, Naruto darted out of the room with Usagi asleep in his arms. Usagi's dream world. Usagi dreamed that she was flying through the moonlight night. Nothing but her, Mr. Moon, and the clouds below. She softly giggled to herself. There was nothing wrong in this world of hers, no danger, no homework, nothing to interrupt her tranquility as she soared through the air. This was truly her little piece of heaven. As she continued her dream flight, she caught sight of something. It was a man from what she could tell as she approached the figure. The person was wearing a long white cape and had light blonde spiky hair. She could tell that the person had a good build on him the way he filled out the cape. Excuse me. Who are you and why are you in my dreams? Usagi asked as she floated down behind the person. The man turned his head, showing Usagi part of his face as his hair cast a shadow over his eyes, but from what she could see the guy was quite handsome. Usagi blushed as the man smiled and spoke. You know who I am, my dear Usagi. The man spoke in a voice that was honey to her ears. Usagi blushed deepened a bit at the man's response. I do. The man just stood there looking at her over his shoulder. Even though she could not see his eyes, she swore he was raising an eyebrow to her response. You don't know. Usagi responded again as she shook her head. Was this really someone she knew? The man chuckled a bit. As fast as Usagi could blink, the man had instantly closed the distance between them and held her in an embrace. Usagi started to blush up a storm as she could feel him holding her tenderly, his right hand pressing into the small of her back as his left hand held the back of her head. His own head was now hovering over her left shoulder as he whispered into her ear. Well then, I guess I'll have to tell you. Usagi breathing got a little heavy as she could just feel the warmth of the man's body, not to mention the firm muscles pressing against her and his gentle breath tickling her ear. This was one dream she did not want to wake up from, and she confirmed that with her thoughts. Please, don't wake me up. 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 Just when she was about to lose control, grab the man's face and start kissing him silly. Identity be damned, the man leaned in closer to her ear, took a deep breath, and yelled. Wake up, Nichan. Reality. Usagi shot straight up out of bed as she kicked and screamed before gravity finally took hold again and sent her bouncing back down on the mattress. The girl looked around frantically in an effort to regain her bearings before finally noticing Naruto standing beside her bed. The boy breathed out a sigh of relief to see his sister back in the world of the living. Thank goodness, I thought I was never gonna wake you up. Usagi blinked a couple of times, and then she started to glare and growl at the boy, who suddenly took a step back from the frightening girl. Damn it, Naruto ni. Just when it was getting good. Usagi screamed out as she continued to glare at her brother. Sorry. Naruto responded as he scratched the back of his head. Usagi huffed as she crossed her arms and looked away from Naruto to find Naru sleeping on a neighboring bed. Usagi got up from her bed and walked up to her best friend, her face filled with worry. Naru. What happened to her? Naruto walked up beside his sister and looked down at the red head. She's in the same dead sleep that Miss Haruna fell into. Nobody's been able to wake her up. Usagi became even more worried for her as she placed her hand on the girl's forehead. How could this happen? The blonde asked as she gently rubbed Naru's head. Naruto turned his gaze to the brooch still attached to Naru's uniform. If my suspicions are correct, it has something to do with this flower here. And I think I know a way to confirm it. Naruto then raised his hand and held it over the flower. As he did this, he began to channel his energy through his arm and allowed it to gather around in his palm. Upon sensing the buildup of energy, the flower began to pull it into itself. Naruto felt the energy being leached by the flower and quickly pulled his hand back and cut the flow of energy to his arm. With a nod he spoke out. That's it, all right. Looks like the Dark Kingdom is using these flowers to drain people of their strength. Usagi gasped as she realized what that meant. That means that they're using the radio station as a base. Precisely, and it also means we're gonna be paying it a little visit tonight. Let's head for home and inform Luna of what's going on, then we can prepare ourselves. FM number 10 radio station, later that night. After the two siblings returned home and brought Luna up to date on everything that happened, the trio waited for nightfall before sneaking out of the house and making their way to the radio station. Upon arriving, the group found their first obstacle, the very same security guard that stopped Usagi the night before. Oh great. It's that guard again. How are we gonna get past Mr. So serious about his work over there? Usagi asked as the trio knelt down to discuss their plan of entry. Luna gave the girl a wink as she responded to her question. I have just the thing. Luna proceeded to perform a flip in the air, this time producing a pink pen with a red diamond affixed to the top. Usagi picked the pen up while marveling at its design. Wow, is this another one of your items, Luna? Luna nodded in response. Yes, it's called the lunar pen and it is a powerful item that allows you to transform into anything you desire to be. All you have to do is call out, disguise power, and then tell it what you want to be. Usagi looked at the pen in absolute fascination. Oh wow. This is gonna be so cool. Without any further delay, Usagi held the pen above her and called out. Disguise power. Transform me into a sophisticated talent agent. As the power of the pen came to life, the diamond glowed as bands of rainbow light arced around the jewel. When the bands finished their circle, they exploded outward in a pink light. The light completely enveloped Usagi with only her silhouette was visible. When the light died down, it revealed a transformed version of the blonde girl. Usagi now appeared as an older version of herself, somewhere around the age of 23 or so. Her hair had changed from her long twin ponytails to neck-length wavy. She wore a long-sleeved pink dress and a short skirt. She finished off her new look with a pair of white high heels. Usagi took a brief moment to take in her new appearance before beginning to giggle like the schoolgirl she was. Wow, it really worked. Hey, not bad Nichan. It suits you. Naruto commented as he gave her his fox smile and a thumbs up. He really did think that she looked stunning in that form. Thank you, Naruto ni. Usagi smiled back at the praise, then she blinked when she realized something. Hey, what about you? You can't go in there without disguising yourself as well. Do you have another one of these pens on you, Luna? The woman asked as she turned to the guardian cat. Luna shook her head sadly. No, I only had the one pen. I'm sorry, but you might have to find another way in Naruto. Naruto just chuckled a bit before he gave a wink. Actually, I've already got something just for such an occasion. The blonde boy took a few steps before putting his hands together, forming the hand signs Inu, I, and Hitsuji before calling out. Henj no Jutsu. 1. There was a pop, as Naruto was instantly enveloped in a cloud of smoke. When the smoke dissipated, Usagi and Luna found a different person in the exact spot Naruto was occupying. The person was a man, around the same age of his disguised sister. He had slicked back light blonde hair and ocean blue eyes and was bare of any whisker marks. He was wearing a blue business suit and matching pants with a black tie. Black formal shoes finished his appearance. This should do the trick. The man spoke in a deep, mature voice that befit his image. Naruto ni? Usagi asked as she found herself completely dumbfounded that her brother would have another amazing ability. Luna was in a very similar state. Yep, it's me alright. What do you think? It's my own transformation ability I got from that weird dream earlier. Pretty cool, huh? The disguised Naruto responded as he grinned at the two individuals' reactions. He just loved surprising people and this ability would definitely give him endless hours of entertainment. Luna finally pulled herself out of her shock enough to speak. My word, that is an incredible ability, Naruto. I must say that it even puts the power of the lunar pen to shame. The cat then put a paw to her chin as she thought over something. You know, I recall someone saying that the lunar pen was made to mimic a certain ability that the Shadow Senshi possessed. Guess he now know what that ability was. Well, now that we are properly disguised, I think it's time we got this show on the road. Naruto spoke as he walked up to his sister and offered her an arm. Shall we? Usagi gave a nod and took the offered appendage as the two began to walk towards the station's front gate. Only a slight mishap stopped them briefly when Usagi stumbled a bit as she was not used to wearing high heels. The only thing that kept the blonde girl from meeting the concrete was her grip on her brother's arm. After recomposing herself, the two made their way up to the gate and after some fast talking to the guard gained access to the station. Luna was easily able to evade the guard's notice as she stealthily moved around the man and dashed inside to meet up with the heroic duo. After some searching, the trio found the broadcast room they were searching for and right on time as the show was just getting started. Gazing through the door's window, the three surveyed room and quickly spotted a red-haired woman looking into the recording booth while several men appeared to be out cold on the floor. Ooh boy, that's my kind of job. Everyone is sleeping, Usagi stated as she looked through the porthole. Naruto shook his head slightly. I don't think they're sleeping. Luna narrowed her eyes as she watched from her perch on Naruto's shoulder. It's the Dark Kingdom, I'm certain of it. We have to stop them now. Naruto straightened himself as Luna jumped off the boy. All right then. It's time to lay down the law. Naruto declared as he prepared to go into action. In one swift motion he grabbed the door handle and threw the door open, startling the woman inside as the two blondes rushed in. Who the hell are you? What do you think you're doing? The woman glared as the two intruders stared her down. Show's over, Red. This program has just been cancelled. Emphasizing his point, the blonde boy flicked his wrist, causing a white kunai he had hidden up his sleeve to eject out into his hand. In an instant he threw the kunai at the control console, causing it to crackle and fizz as the blade tore through the delicate circuitry, putting an abrupt and permanent stop to the broadcast. The disguised Yoma looked at the ruined control board before turning back to the blonde duo with hatred in her eyes. Just who the hell do you think you are? Naruto simply smirked as he responded. We're the ones who are gonna kick your sorry Yoma ass all the way back to the Dark Kingdom, bitch. Flau's eyes widened as she realized that this man knew what she was. How do you know what I am? Easy, I can smell a Yoma from a mile away. And baby, you reek. Even outside of his shadow senshi state he had some sensory ability, and being that close to her he could feel the aura coming off this woman. The man sitting inside the booth had noticed the disturbance going on outside. As he stood up, the being seemed to flicker out of existence before phasing back in right beside the angry Yoma. Well, what have we here? Interlopers. Jadeite commented as he smirked at the two disguised senshi. Usagi took a step back as she flinched under the man's disturbing gaze. Is he a Yoma, too? Careful Nichan, this one's got a hell of a lot of power. Naruto stared at the man, gauging his strength. He could feel the intense power radiating off of him, and he was definitely much stronger than the Yoma he was standing next to or the one they had fought earlier. The boy didn't quite know what to make of him, but one thing was for sure, this guy was no pushover. The man laughed sinisterly at the other male's observation. You are quite perceptive, indeed I am no mere Yoma. I am Jadeite, one of the 4 generals of the Dark Kingdom. Jadeite's eyes narrowed as an evil smirk appeared on his face. You should know it, before you die. Sorry, pal. We're not planning on dying today. Naruto spoke as he shifted into a battle stance, ready to move in an instant. Usagi followed her brother's lead and did the same. Well, that's too bad, you're going to die anyways. Flau, eliminate them. Yes, my lord. The red-haired woman responded as her disguise dissolved, revealing her true self. The Yoma became taller as hair became longer and wavy. Her skin gained a purple tint and her eyes turned red and yellowish. She wore a single-piece cloth that looked like a toga, and she possessed a scar on her forehead similar to the one on Morga's face. Time to die. Flau shouted out as she opened her mouth, and a blast of energy shot forth from her throat and towards the two heroes. Dodge it! Naruto shouted as the two jumped back to avoid the attack. The explosion forced the siblings into the hall where they ran to put some distance between them and their opponents. I think now would be a really good time for you two to transform. Luna suggested as she quickly caught up with the blondes. Naruto looked down at the cat and nodded. Yeah, I think you're right. Sailor Moon, let's do it. Usagi also nodded. Right. Moon prism power, makeup. Lunar power, transformation. As the two finished the transformation sequences, the Dark Kingdom agents appeared in the hallway, coming face to face with the Earth's protectors in their combat forms. The senshi turned as they made their introductions. I am Sailor Moon, the champion of justice. I am the Lunar Knight, protector of the innocent. Sailor Moon. In the name of the moon, we will right wrongs. Lunar Knight. And triumph over evil. Both. And that means you. Jadeite merely snickered at the duo's proclamation and spoke. My, that's a pretty serious statement, but I wonder if you have the strength to back it up. Oh, trust me. We got enough power to kick your ass twice over. Lunar Knight boldly stated as he prepared for the imminent attack. Jadeite's eyes narrowed as he heard the masked senshi's response. Well then, we'll just have to see if you're right. And just like that, the fight was on as Flow lunged forward firing shot after shot of energy blasts at the Senshi. Lunar Knight quickly discovered that they were at a very big disadvantage from the start. The confinement of the hallway they were in was preventing the duo from effectively dodging the range attacks of the Yoma, who seemed to be thoroughly enjoying herself as she watched the two Senshi desperately jump and dive around to avoid her blasts. Lunar Knight barely dodged another blast as he flew and rolled on the floor before righting himself in a crouch. He didn't like this one bit. The explosive power of the Yoma's attacks was preventing either Sailor Moon or himself from effectively countering the enemy, and with them practically bottled up inside the hallway, the Yoma didn't have to use much effort in targeting them. They were practically fish in a barrel. This is ridiculous. There's gotta be a way to put some distance between us and that Yoma. The masked Senshi thought as he quickly scanned his surroundings. It would suddenly seem that luck had come to them as he spotted a large hole in the ceiling that had been created by one of Flow's attacks and led straight up to the roof of the station. That's it. Sailor Moon, over here. Lunar Knight shouted to his partner as she has nearly blasted away by another explosion. The blonde girl dove behind him as he reached into one of his pouches, pulled out several pellets and threw them at the enemy. Upon making contact with the floor, the pellets suddenly exploded into a large smoke cloud which covered the entire hallway and had the added effect of choking the two Dark Kingdom agents. As the Yoma in general coughed and gagged on the smoke, Lunar Knight quickly turned to his fellow Senshi and gestured to the hole in the roof. Up there. Go. With a nod, the girl jumped through the gap with Lunar Knight following closely behind. When the smoke cleared and the two were finally able to breathe again, Jadeite and Flow found themselves alone in a destroyed hallway with no Senshi in sight. Flow growled as she looked around trying to locate her prey. Damn it. Where'd they go? Jadeite was also a little pissed that the two Senshi had managed to pull a disappearing trick on them. Flow, find them and destroy them. Do not let them get away. Yes, my lord. Flow responded to her general's command and proceeded to search for the two heroes. Rooftop. Lunar Knight and Sailor Moon knelt down behind one of the air conditioning units on the roof. When the two Senshi made out, they had quickly accessed their new environment and found it ideal for dealing with the blast-happy Yoma as it provided both room to maneuver as well as various cover, something that the hallway below definitely lacked. Taking the chance to get a breather from the fighting, they started to make plans. Lunar Knight took the moment to go over everything in his head. The Yoma, Flow, seemed to consistently use her energy attack from a distance, so by logic meant that she was not as effective in close-range combat. Not saying that she was weak, no, he was certain that if the Yoma get her claws into either of them, the outcome would be rather grim. By his figuring, if the Yoma were to come into a short-range attack, she would get sloppy and be more prone to mistakes. This was the key to their victory. The only problem was Jadeite. The man had not made a single move during the fight, deciding to let his minion deal out the damage, but this only meant that they should be extremely cautious with him. From what Lunar Knight could feel through his sensor ability and the fact that he held the high rank of general, he was sure that this guy was dangerous. Should he decide to join in on the battle, it would be a very catastrophic. So the masked Senshi made his decision. Lunar Knight turned to his partner and spoke. Sailor Moon, I want you to listen to me carefully. Said girl immediately looked up and listened as he continued. It's not going to take long for them to figure out where we are. When they come, I want you to take care of that Yoma. Me. But, what are you going to do? Sailor Moon asked, clearly surprised that he would ask her to take on Flow by herself. I'm going to deal with Jadeite. We can't afford to let him join in on the battle. I'll keep him occupied while you fight that Amazon reject. Besides, I want to ask him something. But, how do I fight her when she keeps on blasting everything? This rooftop provides a lot of cover, and you can dodge more easily here. Plus, I've been thinking, since she seems to favor that ranged attack so much, she's probably not too comfortable with melee. Find a way to bring her in close. And just how do I do that? Sailor Moon asked, understandably skeptical of this idea. Lunar Knight gave her an eye smile as he responded. I've been in a ton of fights when we were younger, Ni-chan, and I've found that a little taunting goes a long way. He looked at her seriously as he placed a hand on her shoulder. You can do this, Sailor Moon, I believe in you. Sailor Moon stared at her brother for a moment before steeling herself and nodded. Lunar Knight returned the nod with one of his own before turning his head. They're here. Looking back at her, he gave one last nod. You know what to do. Good luck. And with that, the masked senshi quickly made his way across the roof to where he sensed the Yoma general appear. Meanwhile, Sailor Moon readied herself for her fight with the Yoma. Flow hovered over the rooftop scanning for her quarry. After she had searched the interior of the building for the senshi, she discovered the hole in the roof, and after putting two and two together, wasted no time in flying through the hole in search of the two heroes. She was anxious to give them a one-way ticket into oblivion. Compliments of Air Flow. Where are they? The Yoma asked out loud as she looked across the rooftop. Sailor Moon poked her head out from behind the unit and looked up to see the Yoma in midair. Great, this one can fly too, she thought as she took a deep breath before breaking cover and walking into the open. It's about time you showed up, ugly. Don't you know you're not supposed to keep a girl waiting? Flow spun around to meet the girl as a big grin appeared on her face. Ah, so you finally decided to come out and play. Where's your friend at? Ran away, did he? The Yoma mocked as she prepared to deal out massive amounts of pain to the blonde senshi. He's busy. I'm the one you're gonna fight, Sailor Moon declared as she prepared herself. Fine by me. I'll take care of you first before I hunt him down, Flow shouted as she launched an energy blast towards Sailor Moon. Meanwhile, Jadeite stood on another level of the roof as he watched the fight a short distance from where he was. He could see the girl jumping, diving and dodging the blasts from his minion and smirked as he found amusement in her struggles. He had figured that the two senshi were the ones responsible for the loss of Morga, the first Yoma he sent to operate in the city, and now he wanted to pay them back for their interference. Try as you might, you're no match for Flow, Mrs. Moon. The general spoke as he chuckled a bit when the girl barely evaded another blast and was sent flying from the force of the explosion. However, he quickly dropped his grin when he realized something. What a minute. Where's the other one? Looking for someone. Jadeite spun around to find the white senshi standing a few meters away from him. Lunar Knight narrowed his eyes as he stared at the Yoma general. You didn't think I'd really let you just stand around freely, did you? Jadeite smirked again. Well, look at this. The boy thinks he can take me on, does he? And what about your friend down there? Won't she be needing your help? She can take care of that Amazon herself. I have faith in her. Is that so? And I assume you also have faith in your own skills as well. Let me warn you, little man, you are no match for me. I'll be the judge of that. Now tell me, why are you draining people of their energy? What are you planning? And what if I decided not to tell you? Jadeite asked with a cocky grin. Then I'll just have to beat the answer out of your thick skull. Luna Knight replied as he shifted his stance. I'd like to see you try. You will. With those last words, Lunar Knight lunged forward, cocking his fist back to deliver a punch to his blonde opponent. Said man leaned back to avoid it as the senshi sailed past him. Once he landed, the senshi jumped up in the air to deliver a spinning roundhouse kick, but his attack was once again evaded. Lunar Knight went into a series of punches, kicks, uppercuts and hooks that were either blocked, dodged or redirected by the Yoma general. The fight went on for a few moments before Jadeite spoke up. Give up this foolishness. You cannot defeat a general of the Dark Kingdom. No one has. Well, you know what they say, there's a first for everything. Lunar Knight said as he lunged forward once more to deliver a massive punch to Jadeite's chin. Ha! You really are a fool. The general said as he dodged the strike before rearing his hand back and launching it forward in a jab. The sound of fabric being torn could be heard as the general's hand entered through the senshi's back before coming back out through his chest. The senshi's body stiffened and convulsed for a second before going limp on Jadeite's arm. The general grinned. And you die like a fool. Poof. Asterisk. What? Jadeite exclaimed as the body of Lunar Knight suddenly exploded into a cloud of smoke. When the cloud dissipated, the general suddenly found his arm penetrated through a metal trash can. Before the general could make sense of what just happened, he felt a very sharp object pressed firmly against his neck. Jadeite looked down to find a white kunai being held against his jugular vein before looking back to find a living Lunar Knight holding the weapon. And you're a fool to fall for the oldest Shadow Senshi technique in the book. Kawarimi no Jutsu. 2. The general growled a bit but was prevented from doing anything else when the senshi applied a little more pressure to his neck. Meanwhile, Sailor Moon was still trying her hardest not to get hit by the energy blast from Flow as she continued to rain havoc down on the Sailor Senshi. Lunar Knight's assessment of the area had been dead on as the roof provided both room to run and adequate cover to avoid damage from the attacks. However, the Senshi was starting to tire from the constant evasions she was forced to execute. As she took cover once again, she breathed a bit as she tried to think. Come on Usagi, think. How do I get her into a spot where I can attack? Sailor Moon looked about trying to form a plan. She then noticed that one of the structures that had taken a direct hit had some noticeable damage but was still intact, indicating that whatever it was made of was pretty sturdy, possibly sturdy enough for worth a shot. The Senshi thought as she ran in front of the damaged structure before turning to face the Yoma. Now in position, she just needed the monster to abandon her ranged attack in favor of a melee one. With her brother's advice in mind, she proceeded to try her hand at a little taunting. Hey, Scar Face. You know your aim is as bad as you fashion sense. Sailor Moon called out with a cheeky smile plastered on her face. What was that? Flow responded as she gritted her teeth. How dare this girl taunt her? Sailor Moon continued. I really hope you can do more than just shoot energy blasts all day, cause if you can't then you're just full of hot air. Ho 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 ho. The Senshi brought the back of her hand up to her mouth, completing the effect of her haughty laugh. Grr. Let's see how cocky you are when I run my claws right through your damn head. The Yoma shouted as she flew right towards the blonde Senshi. As Flow rapidly closed the distance between herself and her target, Sailor Moon prepared herself for action. Just a little closer. The Yoma leveled her hand at the Senshi's head, intending to rip through her like a wet tissue. And, now, Sailor Moon suddenly shot to the side as Flow came streaking in and stabbing into the structure right where the Senshi stood, the impact from the Yoma causing the entire frame to crater as her arm penetrated the metal. Sailor Moon skidded to a halt as she looked back to the Yoma who suddenly found herself in a little predicament. Due to the force of the impact as well as her arm penetrating the metal, Flow was now stuck. I can't, get it, out. The Yoma grunted as she struggled to free herself from the warped structure. Sailor Moon smiled as she saw that her plan had worked beautifully. No one can call her an idiot now. Now's my chance. The girl said as she pulled her tiara off her head, converted it into an energy disc and prepared to launch her attack. Moon Tiara action. Sailor Moon launched the disc which sailed through the air straight and true. Flow managed to see the attack being launched and doubled her efforts to dislodge her arm. With one final good pull she was able to release her appendage from the metal in time to avoid the disc by jumping straight up. Ha! You missed. Flow smirked as she just managed to dodge the proverbial bullet. I'm not done yet. Sailor Moon declared as she brought her arm up and over her chest, using the gesture and her energy to redirect the flying disc back on target. Heads up. Flow quickly turned around only to find the very disc she just avoided flying right back at her. The Yoma's eyes widened as the disc made contact with her and in a brief moment completely bisected her. The body of the Yoma stayed suspended in midair for a second before it instantly dissolved into dust. Sailor Moon caught her tiara before she started to jump up and down in celebration of her victory. I did it! The excited girl cried out. Back with Lunar Night, the Shadow Senshi witnessed the fall of the Yoma as he smiled under his mask. You did great, Nichan. It looks like your Yoma just got dusted. Game's up, Jadeite. You've lost. Jadeite growled deeply as he witnessed his minion get destroyed by the Sailor Senshi. With the defeat of Flow his plans were effectively undone. Now he would have to return to the Dark Kingdom and face the fury of Queen Beryl for his failure. You may have defeated Flow, but you have not defeated me, Lunar Knight. The Yoma general spat as he started to think of a way out of his captivity. Not from where I'm standing. Surrender. Your plans are finished. Oh, my plans are not finished, Shadow Senshi. In fact, they have only just begun. Jadeite declared as he suddenly grabbed Lunar Knight's arm before sending a massive amount of electrical energy through his captor's body. Lunar Knight suddenly felt like he had just been stuck with a exposed electrical wire and was now being subjected to what felt like the entire power supply of Tokyo. Gurah! The Senshi's body convulsed under the effect of the energy, forcing him to let go of the kunai in his hand. With his life no longer in immediate danger, the Yoma general quickly spun around and placed a hand on the Senshi's chest. Concentrating some of his power into the palm of his hand, Jadeite created a pulse of energy that rippled across Lunar Knight's body, sending the Senshi flying through the air as he fell to the level his sister was currently on, his body bouncing a few times off the roof before skidding to a halt. Lunar Knight. Sailor Moon cried out as she witnessed her brother being shot through the air and landing rather violently on the roof she was on. The sailor Senshi sprinted over to the fallen hero and fell to her knees by his side. "Are you all right?" she asked as she looked him over. Lunar Knight grunted as he still felt the residual energy still coursing through his body. On top of being electrocuted, he now felt as though he had been hit with a sledgehammer and sent flying like a baseball from a home run hit. In other words, that really f***ing hurt. As Sailor Moon continued to look over the fallen Senshi, Jadeite suddenly appeared a few meters away with a very cocky look on his face. It served the Senshi right for daring to fight an attempt to harm one of the 4 generals of the Dark Kingdom. "Not so confident now, are you, Mr. Knight?" The general spoke as he ripped the trash can still attached to his arm away. Sailor Moon quickly got to her feet in between the 2 men. "You leave him alone." The sailor Senshi shouted as she grabbed her tiara again and launched the disc at the general. The man just continued to grin as he lifted his hand and focused his energy on the disc, causing it to stall in mid-flight. "Oh no, my tiara." Sailor Moon gasped out as she watched her weapon fall harmlessly to the rooftop. Jadeite started to make slowly stalk towards the 2 Senshi, one powerless and the other injured. "Now, I will finish you both." Sailor Moon began to shake as she watched the man move towards them while Lunar Knight tried desperately to shake off the paralysis from the energy so he could defend them. It would seem that there was no hope for the 2 heroes. However, their salvation would come in the form of a red rose, one that seemed to fly in out of nowhere and stick to the rooftop directly in front of the general. As Jadeite stepped backwards, a new voice echoed around the area. "Do not give in to despair, Sailor Moon. You are never alone in this fight." From atop of the roof's highest level, a new figure appeared. A figure who wore a tuxedo, a top hat, a cape and a white mask across his eyes now stared down upon the group. His eyes were fixed upon the general as if daring him to make another move against the Senshi. Sailor Moon had managed to retrieve her tiara and now stood poised once again for attack while Lunar Knight was finally able to shrug off the effects of the energy and was once more on his feet, ready for action as he drew another kunai from his pouch. Jadeite suddenly found himself in a very unfavorable position as he looked around gauging the 3 heroes now ready for battle. With the appearance of a third opponent he could ill afford to be drawn into a lengthy battle as his powers had already been taxed from the fight before. So this left the general with only one option. Withdraw. "This is not the last you will see of me. I will return." With those parting words, the general teleported off of the roof and reappeared in front of a large black portal in the sky before he was pulled inside the hole and vanished. With the fight finally over, the 2 Senshi relaxed and assessed the damage done. Sailor Moon moved quickly to her brother's side as he was still a little dazed from the shock and blow he received earlier. "Are you hurt?" The sailor Senshi spoke with a bit of worry in her voice. She had never seen her brother take such a ferocious hit before and it really scared her to think that he had been badly injured. The masked Senshi just sighed a bit as he looked back to his sister. "Just my pride." He let out a grunt of pain as he held the side of his chest. "And a few ribs." Sailor Moon. The attention of the 2 Senshi were turned to the masked man standing above them. "It would seem that you are in good hands now." The man turned his attention to the other masked hero of the group. "Young man, you have fought bravely against the forces of darkness. Might I have the honor of knowing your name?" Lunar Knight took a step forward before replying. "Is it not considered polite to give your name before asking someone for theirs?" The man looked intently at the white Senshi before nodding. "I am Tuxedo Common, my friend." Lunar Knight. "Very well then, Lunar Knight, I leave Sailor Moon in your capable hands. Until next we meet." With that, Tuxedo Common jumped away from the roof and disappeared into the night. Sailor Moon stared at the spot where the masked Kamen disappeared as a blush made its way across her face. "Wow, what a mysterious and handsome guy. Tuxedo Common." The girl stood there with a love-struck look on her face while Lunar Knight stared at her for a second before shaking his head. It was around this time that Luna finally rejoined the group. Are you two all right? That was quite the battle. The two senshi turned to her as Lunar Knight answered her question. I'm all right, Luna, although I'm probably going to be a little sore in the morning. The boy held his side as he felt a slight twinge of pain. Luna nodded as she spoke. I can imagine, that was quite a hit you took. I must say that it was a bit reckless of you to fight that general on your own. Well, it was either that or have him enter the fight at an inconvenient time. If he had jumped in while we were fighting the Yoma, we would have probably been seriously injured, or worse. Plus, I needed to measure his strength, and believe me, he packs a punch. The two females couldn't help but to agree with that statement after having witnessed Lunar Knight's unscheduled flight across the roof. Jadeite was definitely a foe they had to be careful around. With that said, Lunar Knight decided it was time to call it a night and the trio made their way home. Jubin Junior High School. Next morning. The next day everything seemed to have returned to normal. After destroying the Yoma, all of the flower brooches just upped and burned away, allowing everyone who was sleeping to wake up. Mrs. Haruna returned to teaching her class and was making up for lost time by increasing the study load for the students. She wasn't letting them get away with not studying while she had her little cat nap. While the class was knee-deep in their studies, Usagi was currently using her time to doodle a picture of Tuxedo Common on a sheet of paper. She looked at the picture and sighed. She was really looking forward to seeing the masked man again. Unfortunately for her, a certain red-headed teacher walked up to her and spoke. Well, it seems that you might not have time for my class but you have time for art, Usagi. Mrs. Haruna spoke as she leaned on the girl's desk, a smile present on her face. Usagi jumped as she realized she was caught. Ah, well, you see. If you have time for that then you'll have time later for some extra homework that will be due first thing in the morning. Usagi panicked as she tried to come up with an excuse, but quickly realized that she couldn't say anything so she hung her head in defeat and cried a bit. Naruto watched her sister's antics and couldn't help but shake his head. That sister of his never seems to learn. To be continued. Omake, a fate worse than death. Ha, you really are a fool. The general said as he dodged the strike before rearing his hand back and launching it forward in a jab. The sound of fabric being torn could be heard as the general's hand entered through the senshi's back before coming back out through his chest. The senshi's body stiffened and convulsed for a second before going limp on Jadeite's arm. The general grinned. And you die like a fool. Poof. Asterisk. What? Jadeite exclaimed as the body of Lunar Knight suddenly exploded into a cloud of smoke. When the cloud dissipated, the general suddenly found his arm penetrated through a metal trash can. As the general stared at the trash bin his arm had penetrated, he failed to notice Lunar Knight crouched down behind him with his hands together, fingers interlocked except for his two index fingers that were both extended together. It looked like the Shadow Senshi was about to execute an extremely powerful jutsu. Flow was still blasting away at Sailor Moon when she noticed what was going on and tried to warn her master. My lord, behind you. Huh. The Yoma general looked up to Flow in confusion. Too late. The masked senshi said as he executed his move. With big stars in his eyes the boy launched himself towards his opponent. Kage no Senshi Himitsu Yuba Jutsu. The senshi launched his hands forward, right into the man's posterior. Thump. Asterisk. Jadeite's eyes suddenly went extremely wide as his face turned a bright red and sweat began to pour down his face. Ah-h-h-h-h-h-h. The general screamed in pain as he sudden launched forward, grabbing his ass as he sailed through the air. Senin Garashi. 3. Jadeite landed face first on the roof and quickly passed out from the pain. Flow, Sailor Moon and Luna, who had arrived just in time to watch the event take place, all had their jaws hanging down as they stared in disbelief of what had just happened. Lunar Knight stood up with his hands still locked together as he gave a big eye smile. Ah, I love pranks. It was another night at the Sakino house as everyone was doing their evening routine. Kenji was sitting in his chair watching the evening news, Akuko reading a good romance novel sitting beside him, Shingo in his room hammering away on his Nintendo DS while Naruto was in his own room reading the latest volume of Bleach. Who would have thought at the beginning of the series that a story of a substitute Shinigami fighting evil spirits called Hollows would become such a sensation? Both the boy and his sister had every volume of the series that had been released as well as quite a few of the animated movies that had come out since both of them were big fans of the series. And speaking of his sister, Usagi at the time was relaxing in the bathtub after another long day of school. As she soaked in the warm water, her mind drifted as she recalled everything that had happened to her and her brother. The two of them had lived a fairly normal life before the night that Luna came into their lives and changed it forever, but even before then things had always been interesting with the whiskered blonde boy in the family. Despite the fact that it had been 9 years since the incident, she could still remember when they had found the boy half dead on the sidewalk that rainy day, and it was to her absolute delight that he was adopted into the family. Not only did she have a sibling her age that she could play with, but it also gave her someone she could tell her secrets to as well as someone who would lend her an ear for when she was troubled or a shoulder when she needed to cry. His presence in her life was an absolute blessing to the girl and she honestly could not imagine life without him, he was that special. I'm so glad to have him as a brother. The girl thought as she laid in the tub, allowing the warmth of the water to penetrate her skin and soothe her muscles. A few minutes later she decided that it was time to get out, lest her body becomes a prune. After leaving the tub and drying herself a bit, Usagi wrapped a pink towel around her slim frame and walked over to a scale she had prepared before her bath. Okay, time to weigh in. The girl spoke as she stepped on the scale. Meanwhile, Luna was walking through the house as she headed for a particular room to see one of her wards. Once she arrived, she gently nudged the door open and slipped inside. Naruto lay on his bed as he read the manga he had gotten earlier. Wow, and I thought that Ichigo was badass before with his Bankai, with that wizard mask he's even more so. The boy said out loud as he flipped another page of Bleach. Luna jumped up on the bed and observed the blonde for a moment before speaking. Are you reading that manga again? I swear, you and your sister are the worst when it comes to reading that stuff. Hey, don't knock it, till you try it. Besides, I can't help it if it's so damn addictive. Naruto spoke as he continued to scan the images in the book. Luna shook her head. At least tell me you got your homework finished before you started reading. Naruto pointed with his thumb towards the book bag lying on his desk. I finished it a little while ago so there isn't anything to worry about, Luna. Luna let out a small sigh. Alright then. I only wished that your sister would prioritize her studies, it would make things easier on everyone. Hehe, yeah it would, but we all have our own little flaws, one of hers just happens to be schoolwork. Naruto spoke with a smirk of amusement. Ah. The sound of Usagi screaming drew the immediate attention of the cat and boy, as well as everyone in the house. By the time Luna spun around, a orange and yellow blur shot past her and out the door. Luna blinked for a sec before looking back at where Naruto had been only to see the book that he had been reading spinning in the air, seemingly defying gravity for a moment before it fell down on the bed. Luna turned back to the door with a look of surprise on her face. Oh my. Naruto literally flew down the hallway to the bathroom where the sound of the scream emanated from, and without even thinking he grabbed the door, threw it open and rushed in. Usagi Nichan, are you Alrig Aghhhh? The boy's face suddenly went red as he quickly placed his hands over his eyes. Usagi had apparently fallen down to the floor after her scream, but when she did the towel had come loose and pulled around her. As such, Naruto had been greeted to the sight of his sister's modest B-cup breasts before closing his eyes. Wah! I'm a total fatso. Usagi cried out as she continued to sit on the floor, not even realizing she was exposed. Nichan. Please, cover yourself. Naruto all but screamed out as he was trying to make his sister protect what was left of her modesty. Huh. Usagi blinked as she finally noticed Naruto's presence, and after finally registering the boy's words, she looked down to see that her girls were out in view. With her face suddenly imitating a tomato, the girl fumbled a bit as she grabbed her towel and covered her chest, just in time for the rest of the family to pop their heads in. Oh my, were the words of Akuko as she covered her mouth with one of her hands, seeing the situation that her two eldest children were in. A short time later the whole family had gathered around the kitchen table as both Naruto and Usagi were still sporting fairly pink cheeks from the incident that happened in the bathroom. Well, I hope this teaches you to not just go running into the bathroom when someone else is in there, Naruto. Akuko lectured while Naruto just nodded a bit, still feeling embarrassed for seeing Usagi nude, clearly this time. He was just thankful he didn't catch sight of his sister's other part. Anyway, what was all that screaming about, Usagi? You had us all jumping from your cry. Akuko asked, looking at her daughter with a bit of concern. Naruto turned to his sister. Yeah, Nichan. I heard you in there saying something about being a fatso. The boy simply couldn't believe that statement for a moment. Usagi neither now or once ever had a single ounce of fat on her body, well except for the obvious places pertaining to the female physique, but that was beside the point. She was the definition of slim for girls. He simply could not think of anything that would make her believe she was fat. I gained half a pound. Quote. Nichan, are you telling me you freaked out just because you gained half a pound? The girl nodded a bit sheepishly. I hate to say, I really hate to say it, but there are times when you overreact to the most ridiculous of things. Naruto said as he shook his head. Kenji nodded in agreement with his son's statement. I have to agree with Naruto there. You know, Usagi, you're only 14 years old, you're still growing, so it's only natural that you might be gaining some weight here and there. Shingo decided to add his 2 cents in on the conversation. Yes sis, it's just half a pound, I'm sure you'll work it off, on your frantic dash to school tomorrow. The boy finished with a cocky grin. Usagi became a little upset as her eyes started to tear up. None of you care. And with that the blonde girl proceeded to cry, anime style. Naruto, despite his urge to comfort his sister, could only look at her and shake his head again. There were times when she would act so childish and the boy knew that she needed to act a little more mature and learn not to cry over every little thing. Later, Usagi sat inside her room as she thought over what had happened. She didn't get a single bit of sympathy from her family. Even Naruto, whom she knew would never leave her in times of pain, had all but ignored her plight. How can they not understand that for a young girl like her gaining weight was a disaster? As she sat there gazing at the moon through the window, Luna, who had been sitting beside the girl drawing on a piece of paper with a pink crayon, spoke to the young moon senshi. Usagi, are you still upset about that half-pound you gained? The cat had overheard the entire conversation and had to keep herself from face-faulting at how ridiculous the whole situation was. A half-pound. 8 ounces. You gain at least that much weight every time you eat. And this girl was making a huge fuss over it. Seriously. Usagi simply responded to the question with a nod. And now you're going on a diet. After having her crying fit, the girl announced to the whole family that she was immediately undergoing a strict diet, meaning she was going to skip meals, which in no way is actually considered a diet. The girl nodded again before she noticed what the cat was doing. With her curiosity piqued, she asked, "What are you doing there, Luna?" The cat, whom had decided to make a joke out of the girl's worries, had drawn a picture of Usagi as Sailor Moon, only a heck of a lot chubbier. Luna showed the picture of the oversized senshi to the girl and responded with a Cheshire grin. Just drawing a picture of my favorite hero. Usagi apparently didn't see the cat's humor as she huffed at her guardian. Negaverse, Dark Kingdom. Queen Beryl sat upon her throne as she waited for her subordinate Jadeite to bring news on the progress of her plan. After his second failure to harvest energy, the queen herself decided to take matters into her own hands, coming up with a plan that was guaranteed to succeed in harvesting the human's energy. After issuing her orders to Jadeite, she sent the general on his way, but not before firmly warning him not to fail again or there would be dire consequences. Jadeite, what news have you to report? Queen Beryl spoke, sensing the presence of her general appearing in the throne room. An image of Jadeite appeared before the queen and bowed. My queen, I have excellent news. Your plan is going perfectly. I must say that you have tapped into an almost limitless energy source. Yes, humans are so vain, spending precious time and energy on their appearances. Indeed, they partake in such frivolous activities like dieting and fitness. We shall harvest the energy they expel for the revival of Queen Medalia. Yes. Continue with the operation, Jadeite. And remember, do not fail me again. Queen Beryl spoke as Jadeite bowed once more before vanishing. Juban Junior High School. Lunchtime at Juban Junior High, and Usagi sat with her friend Naru and a couple of other girls from the class. Usagi was true to her word as she had skipped both breakfast and lunch as she attempted to burn fat by not taking in any more calories. As the group of friends sat together, they talked about the usual girl things when the subject of dieting came up. So you started on a diet, Usagi? Naru asked when the girl told the group about her supposed weight problem. Usagi responded to the question with a quick nod. One of the two other girls, a chubby girl with short curly brown hair named Ayumi, decided to join in on this particular topic. You know, my mother says that girls our age should never go on a diet. But we're all 14. The other girls all spoke. From the way they responded, it would seem that the girls thought they were all adults already. Chika, a slim girl with black bob-cut hair and final member of the group, turned to Usagi with a smile. You know, I just started on a diet as well. Does that mean you're also going to totally stop eating? Naru asked, a little surprised that the girl was also trying to get lean. That's right. But that's really bad for you. Ayumi spoke up once again. If you want to lose weight, cut the junk. All those ice cream sandwiches, potato chips, cakes and pies. The poor girl couldn't help but salivate from thinking of all those yummy foods. What a sacrifice. The group all chorused as they thought about going without their favorite foods. A sacrifice it may be, but it is the best way to lose weight. The group of girls all turned to where the new voice originated from and found a familiar whisker-faced blonde boy walking towards them. Hiya girls. Naruto. The girls were pleasantly surprised to see the boy joining them, if the blush on their faces was anything to go by. What are you doing here, Naruto ni? Usagi asked as Naruto sat down with the group. Looking for you. After the lunch bell rang, you took off without eating. I noticed that you also skipped breakfast, so I was wondering if you were alright. I'm fine. I'm just on my diet, remember? Naruto shook his head. I thought I told you before, you don't need to go on a diet, Nichan. And if you did, starving yourself is not the way to go. If you're going to diet, then you need to eat properly and cut the junk food just like your friend said. Usagi just huffed and sent a small glare at her brother. I'm not going to take dieting advice from someone who can eat 6 cheeseburgers, go home for dinner, and not gain a single ounce of weight. You did what? The girls cried out. It was amazing enough to hear that the boy was able to put that much food away in a single sitting, but to not gain any weight from it. Naruto held his hands up in defense. Hey, I can't help it if I have an insanely high metabolism. How else do you explain how one boy can eat 30 bowls of ramen in a single sitting and still look fit? Naru leaned back as she kept staring at the whiskered blonde. Wow, I wish I had some of your metabolism. I could eat sundaes all day long. You know I always lose weight really fast whenever I get a new boyfriend. Chika spoke as she thought of her latest love interest. Ayumi was quick to pick up on the girl's expression and asked. Hey, you just got a new one recently, didn't you? Chika responded with a nod. This got all the girls' attention. So are you gonna tell us who it is? Naru asked as she always liked to listen to juicy gossip. It's Michiru. Motor mouth. Naru questioned as she recognized the person whom the girl was talking about. Chika flinched a bit at the alias given to her new boyfriend. Apparently she had heard this particular name used on him before. Why does everyone keep calling him that? Naruto was the one to answer that question. Because the guy doesn't know when to shut up about something and keeps mouthing off without thinking. Naruto and the guy had a few instances where the whiskered blonde had to correct the boy after he made a few inappropriate remarks about his sister. Look, I'm not saying he's a bad guy, he just needs someone to keep that mouth of his in check. Deciding that now is a good time to change the topic, Naru spoke up. You know, Usagi, if you want advice on dieting, then maybe you should go talk to Mrs. Haruna, she's been on the fitness kick recently. Usagi perked up a bit hearing this new piece of information. Really? She has. As if right on cue, said teacher walked by before noticing the group of students and smiled. Good evening, students. As she turned, her entire body was enveloped in sparkling light that seemed to accentuate the woman's beauty. I hope you all are ready for today's lessons. And with that, the woman turned and made her way to the school's main building. The group of students stared at the retreating form of their teacher as Usagi spoke up. Wow, there really is something different about her. Naruto was watching as well with a raised eyebrow, having caught notice of something other than the teacher's increase in physical attraction. Hey girls, can I ask you something? The group of girls turned to look at the blonde boy as he continued. Just how are you girls able to do the whole sparkling thing? I've yet to figure that out. The girls merely smiled and spoke as one. Trade secret. Naruto could only sigh as he knew he was not going to get a real answer out of the girls. Suddenly, Yumino popped up out of nowhere with a couple of pictures in hand. Hey, Usagi, look at these cool pictures I found. Said pictures showed Haruna Sakurada wearing a full-body leotard doing various poses while exercising. Teachers aren't supposed to look that good. Looks like she's been working out. Usagi took the photos and examined them. Wow, no way. Yumino smiled as he watched the girls look at the pictures in wonder. However, his smile soon left him as he felt a strong hand grab his shoulder firmly and a sense of dread came over him. I know. The voice of one Sakino Naruto made the young boy glance fearfully over his shoulder to see the blonde-haired boy with a wicked smile plastered on his face. Tell me, friend, where in the world did you get those pictures? Yumino got very nervous as he started to shake a little from both the look on the blonde's face as well as the tone of voice he was using, both telling him that he needed to pick his words carefully. The girls also became rather interested in where the brown-haired boy had acquired the photos. Picked them up when Mrs. Haruna dropped them from her purse just now. The boy felt the grip on his shoulder get tighter to the point where he started to feel pain as Naruto's smile got bigger. Gee, that's funny. I could have sworn that Mrs. Haruna didn't carry her purse while on the school grounds. The girls also realized this and sent the glasses-wearing teen a hard glare, making the boy really sweat as he realized just how deep of a hole he had just dug for himself. Seeing that he was deep enough already, the boy cratered. Alright, I admit it. I secretly borrowed the photo club's camera and took the pictures. Oh, I see. You were stalking her. Naruto said before spinning Yumino around so that he was facing him directly and pulled him in close and looking the boy dead in the eyes. You know what my policy is for acts I consider unethical, stalking and taking pictures of someone without them knowing just so happens to be in that category. Help me. Yumino squeaked out as he reached for the girls. The ladies, however, were not in the mood to help the boy as they too considered his actions as wrong. Gym Shapely, the next day. The group stood in front a recently opened aerobics and fitness gym called Shapely. During Yumino's little, discipline session, he coughed up the location of the gym that Sakurada was visiting to get fit. Now the 4 girls and 1 boy, who decided to come along for the heck of it, readied themselves for a major workout to get in shape. This place looks great already. Usagi said as she stared at the large gym, eager to get some good exercise. Naru nodded in agreement. Yeah, I can't wait to get started. Let's go. The girls cried out as they dashed towards the entrance to the building. Naruto just stood there watching before he calmly walked into the gym shaking his head. Girls and their antics. From above, on the second floor of the building, a shadowy figure watched the group enter the gym, a sinister smile on his face. Excellent, more victims for our energy harvest. The figure disappeared as he prepared himself for his role. Later, the group of girls exited the changing room wearing white sweatshirts and blue bloomers supplied by the gym and talked amongst themselves about where to start their fitness workouts. So, what do you guys want to do first? Usagi spoke as she looked about. I don't know, where do we start? Naru responded as she too took in the sight of the gym. Sorry for the wait, girls. The girls turned to see Naruto come out of the men's changing area and promptly blushed when they saw him. The boy was wearing a pair of blue athletic shorts and a white sleeveless muscle shirt that seemed to stretch around his frame, showing a lot of muscle tone. You know, I think they gave me a small shirt. Naruto said as he pulled the shirt downward since the shirt revealed a little bit of his washboard abdomen, while he did that though he pulled more of the fabric against his chest causing it show even more muscle definition. We're not complaining. Chika said as she soaked up the sight with her eyes like a sponge. Boyfriend or no, she was not going to miss a chance to see this. The rest of the girls nodded as they also recorded the sight in their minds. Usagi sighed as she watched her friends literally drool over her brother. Good morning, everyone. The group turned around to see a blonde-haired man wearing a purple track suit and blue glasses approaching. Welcome to Gym Shapley. I'm Jed and I'll be showing you around today. The girls blushed a little harder as they stared at the handsome man before them. Usagi joined in as her face took on a red hue. Is this your first time here? Yes, it is our first time. Usagi replied. Well then, just step right this way and we'll get you started. Jed said as he gestured down the hallway. The girls nodded and walked down the hallway towards the workout area. Jed watched the girls disappear around the corner before turning his attention to the blonde boy who was walking up to him. Good morning, sir. Are you here for our bodybuilding workout regime? Naruto chuckled a bit before replying. Actually, I'm with those girls you just spoke to, but I will be using a more intense workout set than they will since I'm already in shape. I see. Well then, right this way. Jed said as he led the boy into the gym. As Naruto walked behind the man he tilted his head slightly. There is something familiar about this guy, but I just can't seem to remember where I've seen him before. Finally Naruto shrugged his shoulders and entered the workout area. A short time later the whole group was busy working their bodies as they exercised in the gym. Naru was busy doing pull-ups on the bar while Ayumi and Chika were performing shoulder presses with one of the gym instructors. Usagi grunted as she worked on a rowing machine while another instructor kept up with her progress. Alright, 200 more reps to go. The instructor announced and Usagi let out a groan. This wasn't exactly what she had signed up for. Meanwhile, Naruto had just finished his warm-up exercises and stretches and decided to begin his workout by going to the pull-up bar that Naru had just used. Grabbing a hold of the bar he began his routine by slowly pulling himself up, holding for a second, and then lowering himself before starting again. Now with the boy being as fit as he was could easily repeat the motions over 60 times before having to take a break. This however was before he became a senshi and gaining knowledge of energy manipulation. Now with said knowledge he knew how to direct his energy to his muscles to both enhance his strength and his stamina, meaning he could go on much longer and harder than he could before. Deciding to not only test this ability but also have a little fun in the process, Naruto concentrated some energy into the muscles in his arms, strengthening them to beyond a normal person's limit. Now finding that the increase of strength made the exercise less challenging, he upped the routine by releasing the bar with his left hand and held himself up with his right. The boy smirked as he proceeded to do his pull-ups with a single arm. During this time Ayumi had taken to the treadmill and was doing her best not to pass out from all the running she was doing. Not bad, 3 more miles to go. The instructor informed the poor girl, who was just about ready to collapse from both the strain and the statement. As the instructor watched on he happened to glance over at Naruto and was shocked at what he was seeing. The boy was doing his pull-ups with only his right arm, and it looked like he wasn't even trying. Whoa! The instructor suddenly blurted out causing Ayumi to look at what the man was staring at. Upon seeing the blonde-haired boy performing his extraordinary feat Ayumi faltered, causing her to fall flat on the treadmill before shooting off the machine as it was still running. Naruto heard the commotion and looked to find the girl lying flat on her stomach some 6 feet from the treadmill she was on moments ago and a worried instructor rushing to her aid. Did I just miss something? Naruto wondered out loud as he looked around. Soon the group was back in full swing as Naru took to an exercise bike and Chika worked on a weight machine performing a butterfly bench press. Naruto was running on the same treadmill that Ayumi had ran on while the girl decided to do something a little less dangerous and did some sit-ups on the floor. Jed entered the area so he could check on the progress of his latest patrons. Clapping his hands together the man offered up words of encouragement. You're all doing well. Keep it up, everyone. Naru decided to take a little reprieve from her workout as she turned to her raven-haired friend to see where she was on her workout. How you doing, Chika? Almost done, I'm on my last set. Chika replied as she strained to finish the workout. Almost done, huh? Not by a long shot. Jed thought to himself before speaking out. Hey, you on the bike. Back to work. Naru was a little taken back by the forceful order by the gym instructor but nevertheless complied as she poured on the steam, pedaling the bike as fast as she could. Naruto had heard the instructor give his harsh order and was a little put off by the guy. This guy thinks that he can push us around, huh? Well, time to show off what I got and he don't. And with that, Naruto pumped a large amount of energy into his legs, reinforcing them as he began to run faster and faster, causing the speedometer on the treadmill to go past its highest notch, which just so happened to be 12 miles per hour. It wasn't long for everyone to take notice of the odd sound being emanated from the corner the boy was occupying and all jaws to drop at how fast the blonde was moving on the treadmill. Chika and Ayumi were both rendered speechless at the sight while Naru stared at the blonde boy before softly speaking. Wow, I knew Naruto was strong and all, but I didn't think he was this strong. The instructors were also in a state of shock as they watched the boy run twice as fast as the average human could sustain. Naruto couldn't help but feel exhilarated. Being able to physically push yourself beyond the natural limits of a human being has always been the goal of man, and the boy was able to do that and more. He could push himself without worrying about fatigue for a long time. He was stronger, faster, better than any normal person thanks to his energy manipulation abilities. As he continued to pour on the speed the treadmill he was on started to smoke as the machine was pushed to its limits. Just as it looked like the machine was about to tear itself apart, the boy suddenly launched himself off of the treadmill, performed a backflip and landed in a crouch on solid ground. Woo! My feet are burnin', baby, they are burnin'. I gotta tiptoe, tiptoe, tiptoe. Ha ha! Naruto exclaimed as he started dancing on the tip of his toes. The gym instructors glanced between the blonde whiskered boy and the smoking treadmill as a single thought entered their minds. This guy's a machine. Jed's clapping brought everyone out of their stupor as he walked up to the group. Well done, sir. Well done. An excellent display of athletic prowess. You are most impressive, sir. The boy bowed theatrically to everyone present while Jed thought to himself. Such massive amounts of energy within him, I must harvest it. Now then, since everyone is through with their workouts, you have access to the beauty and relaxation spa downstairs. Oh wow, that sounds great. Naru spoke as she headed to the stairs leading to the basement. Yeah, I could really use it right now. Chika added in as she followed the girl out of the area with Ayumi bringing up the rear. Naruto watched the girls disappear around the corner when he realized that someone was missing from the group. Wait a minute, where's Nichan? The boy thought to himself as he looked around the gym trying to find his sister. Figuring that the girl had decided to skip out on the exercises when they started to get rough, he should have known this would happen, the boy began to head towards the changing room to go look for her. What about you, sir? Naruto spun around to see Jed standing behind him. Why don't you give the spa a try? I'm sure you could use one after that little marathon you ran. Jed smiled, trying to convince the boy to go downstairs. Naruto waved his hand as he respectfully declined the offer. No, that's okay. I'm actually quite used to working out, so I don't feel sore after exercising. Thanks anyway. Are you sure, sir? Your friends are probably waiting for you and I assure you that you will feel so much better. Jed continued his attempt to persuade the teen to go down to the spa area. Naruto, however, resumed his walk into the changing room. As nice as that sounds, I really need to go, there is someone I need to find right now. Maybe next time. The boy disappeared around the corner, just missing Jed's scowl while clenching his fists. The energy he could harvest from the boy would be of great aid in the queen's plans, and having it literally dangled in front of him and then pulled away left him quite irritated. However, he knew better than to try something in broad daylight that would scare away potential victims. Oh well. He still had 3 young girls he could harvest. As for the boy, well, there was always next time. Naruto finished changing his clothing and started to depart the gym when he slowed down and started to think. I still can't shake the feeling that I have seen him somewhere. Shaking his head, he resumed his search for his wayward sister, completely unaware that the girl was still inside the gym. Usagi had indeed decided to bail on the exercises and had wandered around until she found the gym's jacuzzi tubs. Being sore from the workouts, she took a dip in the tub. Man, that was tough. I don't know how Naruto-ni can do all that without being worn out. She thought as she washed the sweat off her face. It was pretty clear that this girl was not the athletic type. Meanwhile, down in the basement, the girls found themselves looking at an odd sight. Several clear cylindrical pods were held in place with what looked to be a network of glowing roots that connected to a large pulsing sphere affixed to the ceiling. The whole thing looked eerie and weird. Author's note: Just the look of this room should have thrown up a big red flag. The girls all looked at the pods before them with concern. What is all this, Jed? This is really weird. Chica spoke out as she eyed the alien-looking device before her. Don't be scared, girls, these are our relaxation pods. Just step inside them and in mere minutes you'll be relaxed and rejuvenated. I promise you that you will feel like a brand new you. Jed responded, coaxing the girls into entering the pods. The girls were a little hesitant at first, however after being reassured the trio entered the pods. When the girls were nice and settled in, the large sphere above the pods began to glow brighter, indicating that the alien-looking machine was starting its function. The girls closed their eyes and relaxed, completely unaware that the machine that they thought was helping them was actually siphoning their energy away. As Jed looked on, a sinister smirk made its way onto his face while he chuckled to himself. Relaxation pods. That's a good one. Queen Beryl will be pleased with the progress we are making. It's still a shame to lose that young man, but we will definitely make up for it as we continue to attract more victims. Negaverse, Dark Kingdom. Sitting on her throne, the Queen of the Dark Kingdom watched through her crystal ball as her plan seemed to be going off without a hitch. The evil queen laughed as she watched the girls being drained of their energy. Everything was going well. Jim Shapley, minutes later. As the device slowly powered down after completing its function, the three girls slowly stepped out of the pods and walked up to the blonde instructor. The girls looked terrible. Their faces were stretched and pale while their eyelids drooped down. My gosh, I'm so tired. Naru spoke out as she could barely stay on her feet. Ayumi added in her thoughts as well. I'm totally wiped out. Chika could only nod her head slightly in agreement as she was so worn out she couldn't speak. Jed smiled at the group and spoke. But you should see the glow you have on all your lovely faces. The girls brightened up a bit after hearing the blonde's words. What? It really worked then? Naru asked as she started to think that the tiredness was a small price to pay for becoming beautiful. Jed continued with an even bigger smile. Of course. The relaxation pods have worked perfectly. The man lied through his teeth. Soon the girls slowly made their way out of the room and back up the stairs, leaving Jed alone with his thoughts. Perfectly for the Dark Kingdom that is. Those stupid humans will believe anything. And now I shall feed their energy to Queen Medalia, and we will be one step closer to conquering Earth. The room began to echo with the disguised general's sinister laugh. Juban Shopping District, Game Crown, sometime later. Naruto had been searching for his wayward sister for some time now. After leaving the gym the boy ventured around to the usual places that he knew the girl liked to hang out at, but so far he came up with nothing as no one had seen her. Finally coming to the last place on the list, Naruto entered the Game Crown arcade. Walking in, he was immediately bombarded by the lights and noise of the machines as customers went about their leisure. Scanning the area for his sister's familiar hairstyle, the boy became a bit disappointed when his search yielded no result. Letting out a sigh, he walked up to the bar area just in time for the owner of the arcade and personal friend of Naruto, Furuhata Motoki, to come out from the back of the building. Hey there, Naruto. You doing all right today? The man asked as he walked around the bar and shook hands with the whiskered blonde. I'm doing pretty good, Motoki. How's business been going? It's going well enough. So, I take it you're here for a few games. The Sailor V game just came in and it's already got a lot of scores on it and I'm ready to see you trump them. It was no secret at the Game Crown that Naruto was one of the best arcade players around. The boy pretty much had his high score in every game in the whole arcade. Naruto scratched his head sheepishly as he chuckled. Actually, I'm trying to find my sister. We were at that new gym called Shapley, when I lost track of her. Motoki blinked when he recognized the name. Did you say, Shapley? You know I heard some rumors about that place. Naruto blinked. What kind of rumors? I heard that some of the people who go in there come out really tired and drained of their strength. In fact, one of my friends came in here after she worked out there and she looked like terrible, like all the energy had been drained from her. Naruto contemplated this new information very carefully. It sounded a lot like the incident with the radio station a few weeks ago. Thinking back now, he did sense something rather peculiar about the place, plus the man he spoke with earlier still bothered him. He just could not shake the feeling that he had met him before, but something was preventing him from drawing any recognition. It was as if something was obscuring the man's identity. Given what he had just heard, the boy figured that the situation warranted him to do a more thorough investigation. So, what was Usagi doing in a gym, Naruto? I can figure someone like you going, but your sister. Motoki suddenly spoke, snapping the boy out of his thoughts. Well, Nichan thinks she is overweight, so she's going on a diet and working out to lose weight. Personally, I think it's silly. Motoki blinked a couple of times before speaking. Usagi thinks she needs to diet. That's ridiculous. That girl doesn't have a shred of fat on her. What in the world possessed her to think that? Naruto shook his head. I have no idea. I've been trying to tell her that she doesn't need to diet, but you know her once she gets an idea in her head. Motoki chuckled a bit. Yeah, I know. Well, when you find her, bring her in here. I'll tell her myself, maybe she'll listen to me. Naruto smiled. Things like this have worked in the past. If the girl didn't listen to him, which wasn't often, she would definitely listen to Motoki. Finally, the boy stepped away from the bar and started to walk towards the door. Well, I gotta get back to looking. I'll see you around, Motoki. Naruto said over his shoulder while waving, a gesture that was returned by the elder blonde. However, just as he made his way outside, someone bumped into him. Stumbling backwards a little, the boy looked down to see the very familiar sight of twin blonde meatball hairdo that belonged to none other than his sister. It would seem that instead of finding her, she found him. Noticing that the girl was leaning weakly against him, he held the girl by her shoulders and spoke. Usagi Nichan. The girl opened her eyes slightly and spoke. Naruto ni, is that you? Are you alright? I will be if you stop moving. Usagi replied as she went limp in his arms. After leaving the gym, the girl had been wandering around nearly starving since she had not eaten very much in the last few days. She was so hungry that she was almost compelled to steal a donut from a young boy, but her dignity stopped her from committing such a dishonorable thing, as she thought it would upset her brother if he ever found out. So with all of her reserves running on empty, Usagi traveled around until she came past the game crown and inadvertently walked straight into her brother. With her energy finally reaching its limit, the girl began to fall into unconsciousness. Naruto ni, my beloved brother. May we meet one another again, in the next life. Usagi thought as her world went black. Naruto became a little concerned for his sister as she completely collapsed into his arms. With haste, the boy effortlessly picked up his sister bridal style and re-entered the arcade, taking a straight path to the rear of the building where Motoki was busy with his work. Minutes later. Here, Nichan, drink some of this. Naruto said as he placed an energy drink up to his sister's lips. After taking a few sips, the girl opened her eyes as the sugars in the drink took effect. Blinking a couple of times to clear the blur in her vision, Usagi turned to her brother. Naruto ni. Naruto sighed. Thank goodness. You went and fainted on me outside of the arcade. The boy turned to Motoki once more. Thanks for the help, Motoki. Usagi looked to the other blonde in the room and blushed a bit. Motoki-kun. You're here too. Motoki chuckled. Of course, Usagi. Why wouldn't I be at my own arcade? Are you doing all right? You had us both worried for a moment. Usagi nodded sheepishly and smiled. I'm all right, I was just a little tired back there. Naruto became serious as he fixed his attention back on his sister. If you had eaten properly for the last few days, you wouldn't be exhausted now. I told you that you don't need to be dieting. He's right, you know. You really don't need to be dieting, you look absolutely fine the way you are. You should be enjoying yourself at your age. Motoki added in with a cheerful smile. Usagi's blush deepened as she looked to the elder blonde. Really, you think I look good? She took the compliment in a way that most girls with crushes would. Motoki nodded. Of course. Now, since you need something to eat to get your strength back, why don't you wait here while I whip up something for you? I could even make you something as well if you want, Naruto. Naruto turned back to Motoki with a smile. Sure thing, Motoki. I am feeling a little hungry right now. With a nod, the owner of the game crown entered the kitchen area to make some food for the two siblings. It wasn't long before he returned with 2 plates of cheeseburgers and French fries. As Naruto and Usagi ate the meals, Motoki thought about how it felt to help the girl when she needed aid. You know, guys, there is something that I have been thinking about for a while now. The two looked up from their plates as Naruto swallowed the food in his mouth before speaking. What's up, Motoki? Well, for the longest time now I've been thinking about becoming a doctor. It always feels good when I help someone and I've been thinking about getting a doctor's degree for some time. I just can't seem to make up my mind about pursuing it or not. Naruto thought about it for a second before he looked back to the man with a smile on his face. If that is what you really want to do, then go for it. Motoki blinked a bit before responding. Really? You think I should? The boy nodded. Absolutely, man. If anyone can do it, it's you. Usagi suddenly began to panic a little. But, what about the arcade? If he's not here, then who's gonna run and take care of it? Truth be told, it wasn't the arcade she was worried about losing. Motoki smiled at the girl. Don't worry, Usagi. It's not like I'm leaving soon. I have to raise enough money for tuition first and then get into a university, and that is a long way off. But as far as the arcade is concerned, I could always give it to your brother. Naruto smirked a bit as he could tell that Motoki was joking a little. Usagi, however, had sparkles in her eyes at the thought that her brother would be the owner of an arcade, which meant free games for life for the hyperactive girl. Streets of Juban, some time later. Naruto and Usagi walked down the street enjoying the remainder of the day. After their lunch at the Game Crown, the two siblings decided to walk off the meal. However, when they passed by a bakery, Usagi asked if Naruto would buy her some donuts. Naruto was a bit surprised that his sister would ask for more food so soon, but chalked it up to her body needing extra nutrients to make up for what it lost, plus his sister giving him the puppy dog eye treatment didn't help either. These are so good. Usagi exclaimed as she munched on another donut. Naruto chuckled a bit as he walked beside his sister. I would imagine so with the way you're putting them away. You sure you don't want one, Naruto ni? Nah, I'm good for now. Well, if it isn't Meatball Head and her brother Spikes. The two came to an abrupt halt when they came face to face with their mutual dislike, Mamoru. Although, with the way you're eating them, maybe I should call you, Donut Head. The man said as he fixed his gaze on Usagi. Naruto fixed a glare on the raven-haired man. What the hell do you want, Mamoru? The blonde boy was not at all pleased with this guy. Every time he had heard of this guy, it seemed as though he did nothing but insult and talk down towards him and his sister. Plus the guy just seemed to radiate an aura of arrogance that rubbed the teen the wrong way. Oh yeah, he really didn't like him. Oh, so you know my name. I'm flattered. Mamoru responded with a cocky grin. Flattered. Pal, you're about 2 seconds away from being flattened. Naruto responded as he clenched his fist. This guy was really cruising for a bruising. Usagi grunted a bit as she watched the two trade barbs and decided she would try to show the man that his insults would not affect her. You can tease us all you want, Mamoru, but you won't take away the taste of these donuts. The man turned his attention back to the girl. Oh really? Well, how's about you offer me one of those? Or are you just too selfish? Usagi growled as she reared her arm back to throw the pastry projectile at the man's head. So you want one, huh? Well here you go, jerk. However, her hand was stopped by another's, more specifically that of her brother. Don't even give this guy the satisfaction, Nichan. Naruto said as he took the pastry from his sister's hand. Actually, I think I will have one. Naruto took a bite, enjoying the taste of the donut. Mamoru scoffed, disappointed that his plan to get a free donut had failed. You know, man, you can be really rude when you want to be. Naruto smirks at the guy. So says the man who just insults everyone around him. Whatever. Mamoru remarked as he turned and walked away, but he left one more parting remark. You know, Donut Head, with the way you eat things, you're gonna have to work out to lose all the extra weight. As the two siblings watched the man leave, Usagi crumpled up the bag in her hands before throwing it into a nearby trash can. Oh, one of these days I'm gonna bean him in the head and it won't be with a donut. The girl commented as she glared at the spot where the man stood. Naruto chuckled a little. Get in line. I got first dibs on the guy. It was then that a certain black cat made its presence known. You know, I would have to agree with him to some extent. Luna spoke as she hopped up on top of a nearby mailbox. I have never seen you eat so much food in such a short amount of time, Usagi. You just might turn into a blimp after all. Unknown to the two heroes, the cat had found them when Usagi fainted back at the arcade and had followed them since. Usagi looked downcast as she realized that perhaps she had eaten a little too much food in the last hour or so and was afraid that she would indeed start to gain weight uncontrollably. Naruto watched as his sister began to sulk and he swore that he could see a black cloud loom over the poor girl's head. Luna, you're not helping any. Park area, some time later. Naruto, Usagi, and Luna sat down on a bench in one of the city's park areas resting their tired feet. Usagi was still sulking as she thought on her actions lately. It was no secret that the girl enjoyed eating, sweets being a particular favorite food, and when she did eat she usually did it, till she was completely full. Sure, she would always try to limit herself when she ate, but it seemed like every time she put food in her mouth her body seemed to go on autopilot and gorge herself. She absolutely could not control herself when it came to eating. Usagi let out a big sigh before speaking her mind. Naruto ni, why is it I don't have any self-control or discipline like you have? Naruto looked over to his sister. What's this all about? You have self-control. Albeit it needs to be tempered some, but it's there nonetheless. Remember when I first came here, I didn't have any control over my temper so I ended up in a lot of fights. It was only after I started martial arts that I was able to keep my temper in check, and even then I still blow up from time to time. Naruto thought back to all the times he got into trouble when he blew his top. Luna decided to add her thoughts into the conversation. One thing is for certain, Usagi, not eating is not going to solve your problems. Usagi took offense to that as she turned to glare at the feline. I ate. Luna just huffed in response. I'll say you did, you were a total piglet in there. And then you had to go and eat those donuts. Tell me, just how many of them did you eat, anyway? Usagi began to count off on her fingers how many she had eaten. When she got past 5 she began to panic. Oh, I ate too many, now I really will get fat. Naruto had to face palm himself. They had just convinced her that she didn't need to watch her weight and now they were right back to square one. You've gotta be kidding me. Ni-chan, I told you before, you're not getting fat. It would seem that his words fell on deaf ears as Usagi wallowed in self-pity. Luna was getting frustrated with this girl. She just wouldn't get it out of her head that she was getting fat and it was taking her focus away from more important things, like fighting the Dark Kingdom. Usagi, you need to stop obsessing so much with dieting and focus more on your senshi duties. Will you stop feeling sorry for yourself? The cat practically shouted. I'm not listening to either of you, I'm going back to the gym. Usagi declared as she got up and ran out of the park. Naruto and Luna let out a sigh of exasperation. That girl was just plain stubborn at times. That girl just aggravates me sometimes. Luna spoke as she shook her head. Yeah, she can be thick-headed when she wants to be. Naruto responded as he stood up. I'm going to go keep an eye on her, Luna. Why don't you head back home and take a cat nap? Luna turned to the boy and gave a nod. Thank you Naruto, I could use one to clear my head right now. And so as Luna departed for home, Naruto began heading for the gym to not only check on his sister, but also follow up on those rumors he had heard. Gym Shapley. Things were really heating up in the gym as Usagi desperately worked out to lose all the extra calories she had taken in. Right now she was pedaling away on an exercise bike drawing all manner of attention to herself as she looked like a person possessed. Meanwhile, Naruto was simply leaning against the wall watching Usagi trying to break the land speed record on a bike that didn't go anywhere. He could only shake his head at the girl's antics since it wouldn't do any good to try to talk her out of exercising. With nothing left to do the boy turned his attention to his surroundings, trying to find anything out of the ordinary. Doesn't look like there is anything suspicious going on right now. Naruto thought as his eyes scanned the area. Suddenly he spotted someone very familiar walking through the hallway. Hey, isn't that Mrs. Sakurada? Whoa, she looks terrible. Naruto was spot on in that statement. Instead of the glowing healthy woman he had seen just yesterday, the teacher looked pale and worn as her skin stretched across her face. She looked like she was in a trance as she walked past the exercise area and into a more dimly lit corridor. Something tells me I better see where she's going. Naruto told himself as he pushed himself off the wall and followed his teacher down the hallway. As he came around a corner he saw the flowing hair of his teacher disappear down a flight of stairs that was even darker than the hall he was in. Something about this whole situation just didn't seem right to him. Maybe there was something to those rumors after all. Suddenly he noticed a very eerie light emanating from the bottom of the stairs. Silently descending to the bottom, the boy peeked around the last corner to find the supposed spa area covered in root-like objects with the clear pods suspended in the center. The next thing he noticed was the two people present in the room, Mrs. Sakurada and the gym instructor Jed. So nice to see you again, Mrs. Sakurada. Jed spoke as he removed his glasses before grinning evilly at the woman. I'm afraid that your teaching days will soon be over. HM. The second that the man took of his glasses, Naruto went wide-eyed as he now clearly recognized him. Holy shit. That's Jadeite. The boy screamed in his head as he backed away from the edge of the wall. Naruto was really confused now. The man he had met earlier that day was the general of the Dark Kingdom and his enemy. There was no way that he should not have noticed it before, whether it was through sight or by his sense he should have detected him sooner. Something was clearly up. Leaning out again, he focused his senses on the man once more. At first he couldn't feel anything, however as he focused harder he felt it, but it felt as a lot smaller than he remembered it. His energy was shallow, smothered, almost as if it was suppressed. The bastard is suppressing his energy to avoid detection. He's getting smarter, I'll give him that. Naruto thought to himself. However, this still didn't answer why he didn't recognize him visually. Any more mental debating was halted as he watched his teacher enter the pod and the strange machine hum to life. He was pretty sure that the thing was not designed for her benefit. It was time for action. Naruto knew, however, that going in guns blazing was not a smart idea, especially if he was dealing with a general. The last fight he had with the blonde man was still fresh in his mind, and he knew he couldn't take him on single-handedly, a lesson he had learned from the last attempt. So with haste he made his way back upstairs to find his sister again. Well Usagi Ni-chan, you wanted a workout, well here you go. Usagi was still busy trying to burn fat when her brother sudden rushed in and over to the panting girl. Ni-chan, I need you to get off the bike and come with me right now. Not now, Naruto ni. I'm still working out. Usagi responded as she pedaled away. Naruto, not having time for his sister acting stubborn, grabbed the girl and turned her so that she was facing him squarely. Will you listen to me for once today, we got trouble. Jadeite's here right now. This got the girl's attention real quick. What, are you sure, Naruto ni? Definitely, and he's got Mrs. Sakurada stuck inside a weird machine sucking the life out of her as we speak, we gotta go now. Usagi saw how serious her brother was, nodded and quickly followed him through the hallways and down the stairs. As the two stopped at the bottom of the stairs, they saw the effects of the strange machine firsthand as their teacher began to look weaker and weaker with every passing moment. Usagi blinked as she saw the alien-looking room. No way, this is the relaxation room. Naruto looked on in disbelief. How anyone could confuse this place with a spa was beyond him. I swear, common sense seems to be lacking these days. The boy thought to himself as he turned to his sister. You ready, Usagi Ni-chan? Yeah, I'm ready. Then let's do it. Moon Prism Power, Makeup. Lunar Power, Transformation. Meanwhile, Jadeite watched as the energy from the teacher was slowly being siphoned away as the woman became even frailer. This will definitely be her last treatment. The general said as he snickered. You just don't seem to learn, do you Jadeite? The man spun around in time to notice a set of white throwing stars flying straight at him. The general quickly evaded the aerial weapons when they suddenly changed course and flew towards the top of the pod that held the redhead teacher. The shurikens struck the vines that were attached to the pod, severing them and causing the machine to power down, allowing the woman inside to slump down inside the tube unconscious. Jadeite watched as his device was suddenly rendered useless and turned to glare at the approaching figures which he was quick to recognize. You two again. The general hissed out as he came face to face with the two meddling heroes. You got that right, pal. Sailor Moon said as she started her poses. I'm Sailor Moon, champion of justice. And I'm Lunar Knight, protector of the innocent. And in the name of the moon, we will right wrongs. And triumph over evil. And that means you. Jadeite smiled sinisterly as he stared down the two heroes. So the Senshi are meddling with my plans again, huh? Well, I've got a special workout plan just for you two. Boys, as he spoke, the other instructors of the gym seemed to appear from within the shadows of the room, however their eyes seemed to be lifeless as they made their way to the center of the room. All of a sudden their bodies began to grow as their muscles started to bulge up, giving them monstrous appearances. Lunar Knight and Sailor Moon took a step back as they witnessed the men transform. Whoa, they went Hulk on us. Lunar Knight stated as he shifted into a fighter's stance. As much as I'd like to stay and watch you two be torn apart, I have a delivery to make. Farewell, Senshi. Jadeite spoke as he took the glowing sphere of energy from above the machine and phased out of existence, leaving the two Senshi to fight against the giant gym instructors. Coward. Lunar Knight spat as he watched the general disappear before he quickly turned his attention to the advancing threat. The Shadow Senshi quickly focused his senses on the three brutish men trying to determine their strength, but as he felt their energies he quickly came to a startling discovery. Wait, these guys are. Sailor Moon was backing up as the men continued to advance on them. I really hate pushy guys. Stand back, Lunar Knight. I'm gonna moon dust them. The girl declared as she reached for her tiara. Picking up on what his sister was planning, Lunar Knight shouted. Stop Sailor Moon. Those guys aren't Yoma, they're human. Sailor Moon stopped herself as she turned towards the Shadow Senshi in disbelief. What? Are you serious? How are we supposed to fight them then? Easy, keep moving and don't get hit. The masked Senshi yelled as he jumped away from one of the instructors as he swung a large dumbbell down in an attempt to redecorate the room with the Senshi's blood. Sailor Moon also dodged a strike as another instructor launched a punch at the girl's head. It would seem that luck was on the Senshi's side as the large forms and bulging muscles made the movements of the transformed men much slower, however it also meant that they had insane strength, so taking a hit from these guys was not a good idea. As the two heroes continued to dodge the attacks, Lunar Knight decided that it was time to put their more practical combat skills to use. Sailor Moon, I think it's time to show them your close combat skills. Sailor Moon paused as she looked to the masked Senshi. Huh, you think I'm ready for this? Absolutely, just remember what I taught you. The boy had made it a point to teach his sister proper striking techniques after their last encounter with the Dark Kingdom in the event that she was unable to use her weapon in a fight. For the last few weeks he taught her how to properly punch and kick so to maximize the amount of damage she could unleash, and now it was time to see the fruits of their labor. As the instructors launched another attack, the Senshi unleashed their own counter-attacks. Sailor Moon ducked under another punch from one of the men as she sent her fist into the man's gut. Just as with Lunar Knight, her own Senshi powers had enhanced her strength, although it was not on the same level as the masked Senshi. Hers was still impressive as the man doubled over coughing up spit, only to receive a blow to face as the girl leapt up and kicked the man's head. The force was enough to send the poor guy flying backwards. Lunar Knight was also dishing out punishment as he waited for his opponent to strike as the man came down with his dumbbell smashing the floor where the Senshi stood, only for the Senshi to land atop the weight and launch himself forward to deliver a knee to the man's face, causing him to let go of the dumbbell and stagger backwards. Using the upward momentum, Lunar Knight spun around in midair and came across the guy's face again with a roundhouse kick, sending the man airborne as well. As the two fell, the remaining instructor suddenly found himself facing two charging opponents. Not giving him the chance to act, the two Senshi jumped into the air and came crashing down into the man's chest with a pair of flying kicks, effectively knocking all the wind out of the guy and sending him to join his friends on the ground. Landing in a crouch, the two Senshi surveyed the damage. Did we get them? Sailor Moon asked as the two heroes stood back up. At first the three remained motionless, then suddenly they began to rise like zombies and resumed their attacks. Lunar Knight cursed under his breath. Should have figured it wouldn't be that easy. The duo continued to fight the instructors, evading their strikes while delivering their own. However, every time they knocked the men down, they would simply stand back up. Becoming exhausted from all the fighting, Lunar Knight's breathing started to become heavy. Shit, these guys just won't stay down. Suddenly he spotted his sister out of the corner of his eye and saw a threat that she couldn't. Sailor Moon, behind you. Sailor Moon, who was also becoming tired at this point, was busy evading one of the men when she failed to notice another coming up behind her. Too slow to react properly, the girl was grazed by a backhand from the lumbering foe, causing her to be sent flying to the ground. Sailor Moon. The masked Senshi cried out as he watched his sister crash to the floor. He was so caught up in his sister's fight that he failed to notice his own opponent until it was too late. Lunar Knight turned towards the charging enemy just in time to get grabbed and pulled into a powerful bear hug. Sailor Moon managed to get back to her feet when she saw the predicament her brother now found himself in. Oh no! Lunar Knight! She called out as she started to run towards the distressed Senshi, only for her path to be blocked by a couple of hulking masses. The instructor who held the shadow Senshi began to laugh maniacally as he started to squeeze the boy in his arms, eliciting grunts of pain from the Senshi as his bones began to creak and pop from the strain. Lunar Knight gritted his teeth as he was being crushed by the large man. It felt like he was stuck in a vice. Cracking his eyes open, he noticed that he was head level with the instructor. With his arms immobile and as he was in a position where he could not kick properly, the boy did the only thing he could do. He reared his head back as far as he could and with all of his strength threw his head forward, smashing the man's face with a powerful headbutt. Luck, it would seem, was on the boy's side as not only did the attack force the man to release him, it also did something that the Senshi did not originally intend. As the two heads collided, the silver emblem piece on Lunar Knight's hood came into contact with golden head piece worn by the instructor and shattered it. While Lunar Knight landed on his feet, the man fell flat on his back, and this time he didn't get back up. Instead, Lunar Knight watched as the man's body shrunk back down to its proper size. Realizing that the fight was over, Lunar Knight looked down at the shards that were once a golden headpiece. That's it! Lunar Knight exclaimed, finally solving the mystery of where the men were getting their power and how they were being controlled. His attention was drawn back to the fighting when he heard his sister cry out as she had abandoned fighting for another tactic, retreat. The poor girl was now running around the room with the two remaining men hot on her heels. Moving quickly, the shadow Senshi raced over to the girl just in time to pick her up and leap away from a devastating blow from the two men. Gaining some distance he back down and spoke. Sailor Moon, their headpieces are what's giving them power. Use your tiara to destroy them. The girl was more than ready to end the fight as she pulled her tiara off her head and took aim. Moon Tiara action. Sailor Moon once more showed off her skill with the tiara as the weapon bounced off both of the men's heads, shattering the headpieces in the process. Falling to the floor, the men reverted back to their original forms. The fight was finally over. Sailor Moon let out a huge sigh. I'm glad that's finally over. Yeah, that one was rather nasty. Now, let's go check on Mrs. Haruna. Lunar Knight spoke as the two headed towards the pod the woman was still contained in. But as he took a couple of steps, the shadow Senshi suddenly heard his foot come into contact with something. Looking down, he spotted the glasses that Jadeite was wearing before. Picking them up, he began to examine them. There was something strange about the glasses, he couldn't tell why, but he knew that these were no ordinary glasses. Well, this is strange. The boy commented as he looked the spectacles over. Lunar Knight, help me. Sailor Moon cried out as she pulled the unconscious teacher out of the pod. Lunar Knight quickly pocketed the glasses as he moved over to his sister and knelt down to examine Sakurada. The poor woman looked terrible as almost all of her energy had been drained from her. Sailor Moon looked up to her brother, clearly worried for the woman's well-being. What do? We can't just leave her like this. Lunar Knight pondered for a moment before reaching into one of his pouches. I've got just the thing. The Senshi pulled out a small bottle from the pouch before opening it and shaking out a small black pill. What's that? Sailor Moon asked as she looked at the small object. It's called a soldier pill. They're designed to replenish a person's energy. Just swallow one and you're back to normal. Lunar Knight responded as he returned the bottle back to the pouch. Sailor Moon realized something. How is Mrs. Haruna supposed to swallow it? She's unconscious. Lunar Knight realized this and began to think. It seemed that there was only one option here and he was sure that his sister was not going to be willing to do it. I guess I'll just have to give it to her myself. Huh, was his sister's reply. Lunar Knight proceeded to pull down his mask, revealing his face as he popped the pill into his mouth. Chewing the pill, the boy grimaced as he tasted its bitterness. Finally grinding it into a thin paste, the senshi picked Sakurada's head up and pulled her mouth open. Leaning over, he placed his own lips over hers and began to push the paste into her mouth. Working it deeper into her mouth, the boy used his free hand to gently massage the woman's throat, stimulating her reflexes into swallowing the paste. After making sure that the entire pill was swallowed, the senshi pulled his head back to see the effects. Soon the woman began to show signs of improvement as his skin started to return to a healthy pink and became much fuller instead of being pale and stretched. Satisfied with his work, Lunar Knight pulled his mask back up and looked back at his sister, who was now as red as a tomato while her mouth was hanging open, staring at the boy. "Don't tell anyone I did that," Lunar Knight told her as he picked the woman up bridal style and carried her upstairs, a little bit of pink hue present on his face. His sister could only nod as she followed the shadow senshi. Streets of Juban, later. Naruto and Usagi were making their way back home after making sure that Mrs. Sakurada and the instructors of the gym were picked up by paramedics and taken to the hospital. This entire day had been one tiring ordeal for the two. "Ah, man. That's the last time I work out for a while," Usagi complained as she walked a few steps ahead of her brother. "Well, at least you got your exercise," Naruto commented with a chuckle, earning a slight glare from the girl. The boy thought back upon the whole day, reflecting on the events. There were a lot of things that the boy could have done as to avoid the hassle they went through. He realized that now that the enemy was beginning to hide their presence, he would have to train his senses to detect them easier. He also had to berate himself for showing off his skills in front of an enemy, something that could have come back to bite him, and it still could. The boy would have to keep his abilities under wraps from now on. No more playing around. Speaking of which, he was still perplexed as to why he didn't recognize Jadeite before. It was a mystery to him that just bothered him to no end. Thinking back once more, he tried to think of every time he had seen him up until he came upon the relaxation room. Every time he had talked to the man, he didn't recognize him for some reason, and the only time he did was when Jadeite was greeting Mrs. Haruna, right when he took of his. The glasses. Naruto spoke as he fished the pair out of his pocket. Examining them more closely, he could tell that they weren't normal specs. Deciding to experiment with them, he placed the glasses on his face and called out to his sister. "Hey, Nichan. Look." His sister turned around and looked at his face. When she did, she came to a halt as she stared at him. "Naruto ni. Is that you?" The girl asked as she stared at the boy, confusion evident on her face. Surprised by the result, Naruto pulled the glasses back off his face, causing his sister's eyes to widen in surprise. "How did you do that, Naruto ni? These glasses, I think they have the power to obscure a person's identity. Kind of like how your senshi powers render you unrecognizable to everyone," Naruto explained as he pocketed the glasses once more. The two had asked Luna about that particular ability as they were curious why Naru could not recognize Usagi when she first turned into Sailor Moon, to which the feline replied that it was a part of her power so that her identity would remain hidden from everyone, especially the enemy. It would seem that now the enemy was also using such abilities, if the glasses were anything to go by. Thinking on it, Naruto came to realize that he had in his possession a very useful item. Sure, he and his sister had abilities to change their appearances, but it was something that they could use if they needed it. He would talk to Luna about it later on. "Well, I don't know about you, but I'm getting hungry. What do you say we head for home and see what mom's cooking up for us?" Usagi was about to respond, but her stomach beat her to it as a loud growl came emanated from the girl's midsection. Usagi blushed while Naruto just laughed. "I'll take that as a yes."